Good morning, everyone. My name is Giulia Carboni. It is a pleasure for me to welcome you at the question and answer sessions of the 2021 Call for Proposals of the LIFE program. It has been 1 year and a half since we met in April 2020 at the last call round. If you're here today, you know that our LIFE program got an important restyling. So next slide, please. So we moved to a newly established agency of the European Commission. We call it CINEA, is the European Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency. And as you well know, the LIFE family grew to embrace now 4 sub-programs: nature and biodiversity, circular economy, quality of life, climate and clean energy transition, the newcomer. All of this took time, especially considering the circumstances of a global pandemic. As you can see, I'm still working from home most of the time. I hope you are all doing well and you're here to listen and experience more about the program. The good news is the new LIFE program is there. It's up and running. We have more colleagues on board, new faces that you should already have seen in the recorded information sessions. And we managed to launch the new call back in July 2021. And this is what this question and answer session is about. As you well know, all the information material is already available on the LIFE website, and you can apply via the European Commission Funding and Tender Opportunities portal. Still, something might be not clear. You might have some doubts regarding your application. So these 2 mornings of question and answers are for you. And how the agenda looks like for these 2 days. So today, just after this short opening, we will dive in the general and financial matters of the LIFE program. We will try to give our best answers to the question that you have already posted on Slido. And I will be here with my colleagues. Then we will have a short coffee break, a good time for you to stretch your legs. And I'll hand in to my colleague Silvia Barova to moderate the answers for the questions on nature. There will be again a little break, and then at 12, Silvia will give the word to Fabio Leone to moderate the session on circular economy and quality of life. But this is just for today. There is another morning tomorrow where you will be in the good hands of my colleagues, Laura Giappichelli. She will introduce the morning and moderate the session on climate action with a few colleagues from the climate team. Then there will be again a coffee break, and you will be with our colleagues Joël Noir-Fallis, who will answer with their team to the question regarding operating grants for non-profit making entities. And again, the last coffee break of the day and of these sessions, you will then move to the team of the LIFE Clean Energy Transition. There you will be with Annette Jan and Maria Laguna and the colleagues for that team. We decided to dedicate 2 hours to that session because, as I said, is a new part for them. LIFE is new for you. CET is new, so it's good to have time to discuss. So that's all for now. Let's talk business. How does it work today? By now, I think you're all acquainted with Slido. It's slido.com. You don't need to download anything. You just go there on your mobile, on your browser, and you put the hashtag LIFE21. That's the way to ask the question for today and most of tomorrow. What you need to remember is that if you have questions for the LIFE CET colleagues, you need to use the hashtag LIFE21CET. But for today and most of the day tomorrow, you will post your general question, your nature question, your circular economy and quality of life question, and your question on climate action and operating grants, always on the hashtag LIFE21. So that's here we are. We can start the session of today. I'm in very good company of very competent colleagues. We have Christian Strasser, Fabio Leone, Annette Jan, Maria Laguna, Victoria Nicolau, Gabriella Adorno, Lorenzina Bruno, Cesar Sioanes, and Zoe Wilders with us. I will give them the floor. Now you can see all of them. So hello, everybody. In the back office, we have Nadia managing the Slido, Nadia Lamandas. We already have some more than 100 questions there, and we have pre-selected some to smooth into the day, and then we will go to the top questions. So please, of course, still post your question, but even more importantly, like the questions that are there, because these are the ones that we will take in case we are not able to answer all of them. So if I can ask the back office to share the Slido and let us know what is there. All right. So I would like to give the floor to Christian Strasser, who is head of unit in the Climate and Energy Life unit in CINEA, for this very general but definitely important first question. How did the new LIFE program change from the previous program? Christian, what would you say?
Julia, thank you very much for giving me the floor on this question. Welcome everybody as well from my side. I'm Christian Strasser, head of unit in one of the two LIFE units in CINEA, and a pleasure to see you today and to hold with you these 2 days, these 2 half days, in fact, to help and support you in the preparation of your applications, because these applications, your applications, are the key element, in fact, for running the program successfully. Running the program, we have a new programming period 21 to 27, where again we got the LIFE program, which is for some of for us quite logic, but it's not always that logic. So we got the new LIFE program. We got an increase in the new LIFE program for around 60% compared to the previous programming period 2014-2020. So we went up from rather 3.6 billion euros for the 7 years to over 5.5 billion euros for the current programming period. So that's a huge success for the LIFE program as well, to have such a steep increase as well. I'm fully aware, of course, there are other programs in the European landscape which have higher volumes, higher budgets, but still the LIFE program is one of a key driver, I would say, key driver in the current political priorities of the Green Deal. The Green Deal is the priorities, is one of the most prominent elements of the priorities of the current European Commission, and the LIFE program is definitely there to support this Green Deal transition, or the Green Deal as such, among other activities, among other programs. I spoke about the volume of the new program. We have now launched with a bit of delay the new call in July, and you got there as well on the website presentations. So when launching the call, or at the moment of launching the calls, we have, of course, question and answer sessions, question and answers published, and also the 2 half days here are again to support you. It's not the end, because the deadlines for the calls are later. And of course, if something is not sufficiently answered, replied, or covered today, please feel free to come back again to us. As I said, the main element is, in fact, to support you, to bring us, to come to our program with good, meaningful, qualitative proposals, and that's the important thing for the program implementation as such. I spoke about the volume of the LIFE program. We also have new elements in the new LIFE program. In the current LIFE program, we have a 4th sub-program. The 4th sub-program is Clean Energy Transition, and you will hear more details about that a bit later. So it's an extended LIFE program with now in total 4 sub-programs. The first 3 we had already in the past, but the 4th one is a new element. One sentence to say about the organization. You know, the LIFE program is a program which is centrally managed in the European Commission, and it is delegated, or the large part of the program is delegated to executive agencies. This was already since 2014 the case. We were working so far in EASME. So EASME was the agency running the LIFE program in the past 7 years. And from 1st of April onwards, now we have moved to CINEA. I call CINEA always the Green Deal Agency, because in CINEA we have more or less exclusively programs running, which are for the support for the implementation of the Green Deal. So we are in CINEA, the Green Deal agency now, and there the LIFE program got a separate department, Department D, with 2 LIFE units. And as said before, 1 LIFE unit is covering the first 2 sub-programs, nature and quality of life and circular economy. And in my unit, we are covering the 3rd and the 4th sub-program, climate action and clean energy transition. And with that, I would give back to Julia for the next question. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you very much for this very comprehensive reply, which also sets the scene of today and of our new program. Now we go to a very practical question and very hands-on. I would ask Zoe to reply. So can I remove the instructions from the templates?
Thanks, Julia. Good morning to all from my side. Julia, indeed very practical and I would say crucial and relevant question. So when you go to the funding and tender portal, you will see for each call a document which is called, a document which is called the call document. And there in section 5, you will see a header on the admissibility. And the first point you will see there is that your proposal, in order to be admissible, needs to be complete. And with completeness, we also mean that, you have to respect the template you are given, which clearly states that instructions have to be maintained on the template. So the easy answer to this question is, can I remove the instructions from the template? It's a big no. For reasons of equal treatment between applicants, you have to maintain the instructions on the template. If you fail to do so, your proposal can be considered inadmissible, which has the consequences that we will not go further. It will not be evaluated by the evaluators. So I hope this answers the question.
I think it does, and very clearly. Now we have a question for our financial colleagues. So can a beneficiary, coordinating beneficiary or partner, act as a co-financer of another beneficiary of a project? Should it be listed as a beneficiary and also as co-financer? Who would like to take the floor for this one?
I can take this one.
Thanks, Lorenzina.
Good morning, everyone. In fact, a beneficiary in the grant agreement can have only one role. So if you are a beneficiary, you cannot act as a co-financer. The co-financer should not be listed as in the annex of the part A. However, they should be described in the part B. So they should mention, but not in the list of the beneficiaries. They should be described in the description of the part B.
Okay, thanks, Lorenzina. So I would now have a question for Fabio, I think. And I see that actually there are 2 questions that are very similar. So I would ask Fabio to cover both probably in his answer, but I will read loud the first one. So can we involve third countries not included in the list of countries associated? For example, the UK as associated partners not receiving funds.
Thank you, Julia, and hello to everyone listening. Quick answer, yes. Let's make a quick distinction. So I'll cover this theme of involving third countries. There are 2 ways to involve with third countries in LIFE projects. It's a bit easier than in the past. So you have the possibility to associate a partner without budget and so without cost. And this was not the case in previous lives, or at least it was not easy to do. But you can fully associate a partner in the consortiums without a budget. Otherwise, as in the previous life, you can involve including with actions in third countries, a third a country outside the EU or the eligible countries, you can involve them, but there are two conditions to fulfill. First, that the coordinator must be in an eligible country. And second, that these actions that you are undertaking in a third country must be essential to achieve the targets of the project that happens in the EU. So in other words, you have to demonstrate when you come with your proposals that that without that partner or without that actions, you will not achieve the objectives of that you have set in the proposal. Objectives, obviously, that are focusing on EU targets.
Thank you very much, Fabio. Now there is again a financial question. Yes, I guess I could ask Gabriela to answer this one. So what is the maximum minimum percentage of co-financing for each participant or for a new prototype and equipment costs? Short but long in the answer, I guess.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Gabriella, and yes, the wording of this question is quite complex, and I will try to give to be clear, as much as clear as I can. So first of all, there are different, we have to say that there are different EU funding percentages depending on the type of action. So we can go for standard action project up to 60% of EU funding, and for nature and biodiversity project we can go up to 75% of EU funding. Having said that, this is information is on the call documents, but I think that the question of the applicant is more technical. So I will try also to answer this part. I have to say that it is the system which calculates for each beneficiary the theoretical maximum amount of EU funding. So each beneficiary will have just to enter the EU funding requested. But this EU funding requested can be also lower, because if there is funding from a co-financer or in case of income of the project, it could also be lower. But at the end of the day, the maximum grant amount is decided by the EU, and it usually, but not always, corresponds to the requested EU funding. But at the end, what has to be retained at the end, at the stage of the final payment, the amount will not be higher than the amount of the EU funding which is mentioned in the grant agreement. The question also approached a particular cost category, so prototype and equipment cost, and links this to the co-financing. So if I understand well the question, the applicant would like to know which is the percentage of European Union co-financing for this particular cost. So for the equipment cost in the New Life program, this cost can be declared as fully capitalized cost if they, of course, fulfills the eligibility condition, the general eligibility condition, which are mentioned in Article 6 of the grant agreement, but in particular, if they comply with the durability clause, which is set up in the Annex 5 to the grant agreement. The compliance with the durability requirement is assured if a beneficiary of a standard action project or of a integrating nature problem or integrated project commit to continue to use and maintain the equipment for the purpose and of the actions for 5 years after the end of the project. So it is a commitment to follow and to continue to use this equipment for the pursuing of the actions objective, or until the lifespan of this during the whole lifespan of the equipment. So in this case, if this durability clause is complied with, the 100% of the purchase cost can be declared. And on this 100% of purchase cost, of course, will be reimbursed at the funding percentage stated in the grant agreement. So that can be the 60% up to the 75%. If the clause of the durability clause is not complied with, so the purchase cost can be declared according to the depreciations rule for the equipment cost. And in line, of course, this cost and depreciation will be written off in line with the international accounting standard and in line with the practices of the beneficiary. And always at the rate that of funding percentage, which is stated in the grant agreement. Sorry, it has been a very long answer, but it was a very long and technical question. I hope.
Thank you, Gabriella. So you see what happens if you ask a detailed question to a financial officer, they will give you a very detailed, long answer. So, but I hope that at least that the people who asked this question and that liked it are now very happy with that, with a full reply.
I will be short the next time.
Yes, that's obviously good for everybody because, as I said, there are many questions out there. So the shorter we are and concise, the more questions we can answer. But obviously, we also want to give you all the information that we have. So when there are relevant things, I appreciate that colleagues go also into the details if needed. Now, let's say that there is again a general question that could get very much into the details. I invite Zoe to stay not superficial on this, but let's not go into too much details because there will be a specific session on life clean energy transition tomorrow at 11 a.m. Nevertheless, Zoe, the floor is now yours for the question, how Life CET is different from the previous energy calls in H2020.
Okay, thanks, Julia. Don't worry, I'll be rather brief, I think. Life CET, of course, we're talking about clean energy transition, which is the new sub-program to Life. So Life CET, well, Spotted is, of course, building on the energy efficiency calls that took place under Horizon 2020, and more specifically on the CSA type of actions, so the coordination and support actions. So these type of actions, they continue now under Life. You may remember that in the past, under H2020, we also had other types of actions, research and innovation actions, so what we called RIA and IA, and they are continuing under Horizon Europe, so not under this program, under Life. So for Life CET, the approach is rather similar, still topic-based. So you will see in our call document that we have 18 topics that are open for this call. So it's important that you go through these topic descriptions thoroughly because they evolve. They're always following the policy developments on energy. And I'll give you a few elements, practical elements that are different from the way things were done under the Horizon 2020 for our CSAs. So we have a co-financing of 95% now under Life CET. The overheads are of 7% of the eligible direct costs. We are working now with a first pre-financing of 30%, then a second pre-financing of 50%, so no payment any longer. And then at the very end of the action, of course, if everything went fine, then there would be a payment of the balance of a maximum of 20%. For regular applicants who remember how things were for the CSAs we did under the energy efficiency calls. You will see as well that there are a few differences in the documents you have to submit, but you can easily see that. We also have different page limits for some applications, but you'll see all of that. I mean, if there are further questions, indeed, they can be addressed tomorrow. So I hope this was a quick answer to the question, Julia.
Thank you very much, Zoe. So let's, the Lear went up now, but I would still ask Maria to answer this, I think. So Maria, the legal entity appointed representative, L-E-A-R, Lear, procedure should be done before submitting the proposal or after, during the granting process?
Thanks, Julia, for a question. So the answer is that before submitting the proposal, all beneficiaries and affiliated entities and the associated partners, they have to be registered in the participant portal. So, and they will get, when they do this registration, a PIC number, a code number. So this is what is mandatory for the application. The LIA could be done after in the granting process. So it's not needed, it's not a requirement for submitting the proposal. What is required is that all entities are registered, and they forget in the registration, when they do the registration, they will get a code, a PIC number. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. I would like to ask to call Annette on this one. So are international consortia a requirement for live CET?
Yes, thank you very much, Julia, for the question. Good morning to all. The very short answer would be to this question would be yes, in principle. Just a few details on this for the Clean Energy Transition Program, and for those who know us from the previous Horizon 2020 energy efficiency funding that Zoe just explained. Actually, the requirement has not changed. It's completely stable. For those who know us, but also for our participants who are discovering the Clean Energy Transition Program now under LIFE. It is a funding opportunity by which usually it's actually multi-actor, multi-country consortia who are applying to respond to very specific funding opportunities, which are translating very specific policy requirements, energy policy objectives. And this is why typically they are quite large-scale consortia. The minimum requirement for most of the topics, so we mentioned that we have 18 funding topics currently open for your interest. For the majority of them, there's 3 applicants, eligible applicants must be forming part of the consortia. For you to give you a flavor, the actual consortia are actually larger. They in the past, they would have been anything between 7 up to 15 partners, depending obviously on the type of market and the type of actors that you would want and wish to involve in order to have an impactful action covering sufficient markets in Europe. Obviously here, just a small hint, there is no aim to basically artificially cover a map. You're fully allowed to have meaningful consortia and to compose your multi-actors depending on the question and on the agenda that you would like to solve. There are exceptions to this. There are 3 topics for which a single applicant, which is the standard for LIFE, are perfectly allowed. We will discover them tomorrow in the live session, but there are topics in which it is very meaningful that they're actually done on a much more regional level and make sense in their own national framework and culture of the markets. And this is why there are 3 topics which have also an exception to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annette. We go back to our financial question, even if it's labeled a standard action project Klima, but that's something that is relevant for all projects. So on SAP Klima, please confirm that personal costs are only presented as a total amount per beneficiary on the online budget, no breakdown of amount per work package, etc. Lorenzina, maybe you want to take this one?
Yes,
I
sure.
can. Oh, yes. Okay.
You
Yeah.
see, they're all prepared.
No, Laurentina, go.
Yes, yes, indeed. As you have noticed, as of this call, the personal costs are not detailed anymore in the estimated budget table. You have only the total amount per beneficiary. However, the description, the breakdown of the amount per work package is part of part B, where you have the description and the list of activities. So we didn't want to have both the same elements in both parts. That's the reason behind we have the breakdown only in part B.
Thank you very much, Laurentina. I'll give the floor to Fabio now. So, a practical question. Where do I have to include impacts in my proposal, part B or C?
Short answer, in both. Then don't miss the fact that there are two places where you have, at least two places where you have to put the impacts or your estimates of the benefits of your projects. There is a part C. Okay, this is for those that were applying before. This was in the past an Excel file. Now it's fully integrated in interface of eGrant. So you have to compile online in the part C. Beyond some simple question of yes and no, also your estimate of the impact of the project during and after its end. So that's the part C. Of course, in the part B, you have to create the story behind these estimates. You have to give your rationale. There is a specific section in the call in the part B, if I remember correctly, it's part 2. Well, we are all new to this, so we are with you in the novelties, but there is a specific sections, and please take care of combining well these sections about the impacts because they're crucial for the success of your projects.
Thank you very much, Fabio. I like this question. I think, yeah, I could give it to Maria, but it's a very, classic question. What is the duration of a live project, Maria?
Thanks, Julia, for the question. So, what is the duration? So, I'll say that it really depends. It's up to the applicants to decide what is the duration of their project in relation with the objectives and the activities they want to propose and the market transformation on the policy impact they want to have. So, it's up to you to decide. And we have different project durations in the different sub-programs. I mean, in the previous projects that we have financing under LIFE. What I can say that there are some maximum durations for some type of actions. So I think my colleagues can complement if I miss any type of actions. For a traditional LIFE projects, it's I think 10 years. Strategic nature and integrated projects, I think, is 14 years. Operating grants, 1 year, and technical assistance, a maximum of 5 years. For the coordinated and support actions under the LIFE clean energy transition, so the follow-up of the energy calls under H 2020, we have the typical duration of projects from 18 to 36 months, but as I say, it's up to the applicants to decide the project duration in relation with the activities and the impact and that they want to have. And what I can say is that in the topic description for the LIFE set topics, on the 18 topics that will be open for 2021 call, in the topic text, there is an indication on what could be the duration of the project in some of the topics.
Thank you very much, Maria. I'll hand it now. I think it's good if we have a financial officer answering this one. So maybe it's for Gabriella. Is it possible for an NGO to apply for both LIFE NGO operating grant and LIFE action grants?
Yes, it is. It is possible for an NGO to apply for both operating grant and LIFE action grant. But if combination is possible, attention must be given to the no double funding principle. So if there are overlapping actions, they have to be planned and declared only once.
Okay, thanks, Gabriela. I think people are not seeing you. There is a problem with your video, but we could hear you loud and clear, which is the most important issue when you want an answer.
Sorry.
Anyone else would like to add something on this? Or I think it was a very clear and straightforward answer. All right, done. Okay, I think this one probably Christian would like to take it as our head of unit in CINEA. How is life now managed in CINEA? Are there differences for the applicants?
Thank you. Difference for the applicants, I would say not due to the fact that we moved from one agency to another agency. So we are in the same implementation method, I would say. We have live units who are responsible for the operational part of the implementation of the program. And we are also supported by financial colleagues who are not in the live units, but that's an internal organizational part. To the outside, we of course work together vis-a-vis any applicant, any beneficiary. So this is very similar what we did so far. What has changed, but this is not due, as I said, to the change of the agency, is that we are onboarding now, that we have been onboarding now to the Horizon tools, to eGrants. So in fact, the application tools are now in line with the, let's say, the tools, the IT tools, which are the most prominent in the European Commission. So many programs are managed with the Horizon tools, and now Life in 21 has also onboarded. So that's a main difference. You have heard already about the PIC number, for instance, and not the FEL number we had in the past. So there are differences there. But our constituency also, to a large extent, knows Horizon programs. So some or most of you might even be aware or have already used the Horizon tools, which is now, as I said before, also the application for the LIFE program. And we onboard it now for the next years to come to this corporate tool for funding under the European Union programs.
Thank you, Christian. I think I'll bother you for a little bit longer because the next question is on national contact point. An interesting one. The national contact points are the entities in every member state who can support applicants and can give you further information. They can help you during the application process. So this question is quite relevant for them. How can the national contact point know the number of proposals submitted? How can the national contact point access a proposal? How can a proposal give access to the national contact points to see it? I think this is based on how things used to work. Yeah. Christian?
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, for the NCPs, for the time being, the number of proposals submitted is not visible for them. We are working on them on that question, that maybe we can, let's say, inform you from time to time about the number of proposals. How can the NCP access a proposal? Only if the applicant is giving you the access rights to a proposal. For data protection rules, we cannot put that as a default value that the national NCP has access to all proposals. That's not possible. So but there's the possibility for each applicant to tick a box, and I don't know exactly now, they have to give you a role in the application to tick a box there where to invite the NCP to see the open application, the running application. So that's a possibility, but it depends on the applicant, what is the applicant willing to share with you. And logically, I would say if they want your support, they should give you the access, very clear. And in that case, then they of course can read, co-read, comment with the applicant, in fact, your proposal. But there will not be a default value that you can see all applications, which was, by the way, also not the case in the past. So that's not really a change, but that is the way how it will go. So that's but as I said, applicants who have an interest to involve you, to get your support as well for an application, for increase the quality of an application, will voluntarily do it and to give you access to their individual proposal.
Thank you very much, Christian. So actually the next question has already been answered by Lorenzina, even if it was framed in a bit of a different way, but this gives me the opportunity to remind you that all these sessions are recorded. So if you have an important meeting, you can't stay with us for the 2 mornings, you just go back to our website in 2 days' time and you'll find them there. Also the answer of Lorenzina to this, who covered also these questions. So we can leave it out, but it's still the word to our financial colleagues for the next one. In-kind contributions, volunteering, material services could be considered as co-financing. Who would like to take this one?
This is an interesting question. In fact, my first answer would be no, but I think we will get back to you on this because it's quite particular, this management of in-kind contribution. Unless a colleague has an experience on that, we could get back to you on this specific question.
Thanks, Laurentina. This is also good for me because then I can remind you that all the questions that we will not be able to answer for time or because they are very specific, you could come back to us first on the CINEA Life Inquiries mailbox. I will remind you this also at the end of the session. You can contact us there. And for example, for the cases where we think that the questions would be relevant for a broader public, we will then add them on our frequently and asked questions. So as you've seen, the Slido panel switched because we are now moving really to the most liked questions. There are 180 questions already posted there. They are not all for today. So don't worry if you're not seeing some of your questions answered now, because if they are specific to nature, circular economy, or the sessions of tomorrow, that's where you will get your answer. But there are quite a few that we want to still answer in this session. And I would like to give the floor to Fabio for one of our favorite questions, because that's again a short one that can have a million answers. So it's large infrastructure eligible. I do not see 0.5 million euro limit anymore. Is there a limit for infrastructure cost?
Okay. Not easy. But the answer is easy. So basically, yes, the large infrastructure are eligible, and we removed the limit of 0.5 million euro. So that's answered the questions. If I can complement, this does not mean that we are starting to receive full infrastructure projects. So if please don't come with just an infrastructure project, because then it will fail other criteria like value for money. But in principle, we give to the applicants the flexibility in terms of eligibility of infrastructure without the specific limit.
Thank you very much, Fabio. Yes, if someone
Julia,
wants to complement.
Yes, so here for CET, I must say that infrastructure costs are rather rare. We really provide more funding for brains rather than for bricks. So this is really an exception for CET, just a parenthesis, but an important one.
Thank you, Zoe. So I'd ask for the help of a financial officer here. Could you please clarify the method for the calculation of personnel cost? And what about the timesheet? Who would like to take it?
I can take it, Julia.
And we can see you, Gabriella.
Perfect. Oh, okay. So it's okay. But again, it is a very technical question. So it is not a yes/no question. So there has been a simplification in the New Life program. So now for the calculation of the direct personal cost for employment, for personnel under employment contract, we have the calculation is simple because it is done by multiplying the daily rates with the number of days which are estimated for the actions. And to calculate the daily rates, the annual salary cost is divided into 215 days. So in compare with the last program, where we have to go to the timesheet and calculate the hourly rates on the daily rates, there is now a unique reference, the 2014. And with this unique reference, we calculated the daily rate, and we multiplied for the days which are estimated. This is for the cost for personnel under an employment contract. For natural person and seconded person, the cost is calculated according to the rates which are mentioned in the relevant contract. But they might not be significantly different of the cost for the personal cost for personnel who performs similar tasks but is under an employment contract. And the novelties for the new LIFE grant is that now we can use unit cost to calculate and declare costs for SME owners and volunteers. So this, on the basis of the estimated amount needed for the implementation, we just take the information and what is specified into the annex into the annex 2A to the grant agreement, and we and we multiply for the unit costs which are mentioned there.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. And yes, there are things happening in the back office, so that's why you might see us jiggling sometimes.
Yes.
We have a question. It's an interesting one. And I'll ask the help of Fabio to answer this. Dissemination. Are still some activities compulsory, like layman's report, website?
Okay, this may be I can ask the help of the colleagues or the financial, because it's detailed in the grant agreement. I think yes, there's still the website. This time we are not asking for a website per se. On the contrary, we are mandating a specific section on your own website. The experience is that these websites are created and then die after the project. They have little impact. We want the project visible on their own coordinator or in the real world, not rather relegated in a specific website. And so if the other colleagues can complement, you're welcome. I'm not sure the layering report is still mandatory. I think so, but yeah.
Anyone else that knows this detail?
Well,
Cesar,
maybe can
thanks.
I mean, in particular, yeah, for the layman report, well, it's replaced, no, by there is now in our system there will be a section that the beneficiaries of the projects that have been selected will have to little by little update the summary of the project. So that will replace the layman report. So there will be no layman report in particular. So it will just be an obligatory periodic update of that summary section that will be visible afterwards for everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll give the floor to a financial colleague for the next one. Can you confirm that the 2% rule for public bodies no longer applies?
I can take it. In fact, this is one of the simplification that we have with the new LIFE program. And yes, indeed, you don't have, for public body, you don't have to comply anymore with the 2% rules. So you are not going to be requested to provide a public declaration bodies, and there is no difference between additional and non-additional costs requested in the estimated budget.
Thank you very much, Lorenzina. We have now a question that it's actually more on the nature side. And if someone wants to comment, I'll give you the floor. Otherwise, I will rather ask everyone, the 23 people who like this question, to stay with us, connect at 11, because that's where we should discuss this. The question is, does the 25% rule related to the budget dedicated to concrete conservation action still apply? Someone would like to give an answer, or we just shift it to the next session, because that's where most of the nature applicants will be. So in any case, I would like to repeat it there. We'll do that. So we'll archive it for the moment, be back at 11 on this one, and keep on liking it if you want. Regarding project management, I think that probably Fabio or Cesar could help me with this one. Project management. In the previous LIFE program, the project management activity could be subcontracted. is the same for the new LIFE program?
Okay, let me clarify. You cannot fully subcontract the project management. I mean, it's a core task. So there is the core task of coordinating the consortia, the people inside that must be kept inside. Of course, there is part of the project manager activities like support for filling out the forms, administrative support, that some of the project decided because they didn't have the expertise to subcontract. This is still the same. So you can do it in the past. You can do it now. Yeah, but we are not in general terms. We cannot fully subcontract the project manager. Not now, not before.
Thank you, Fabio. Very wise answer. Thank you. So now we go into detailed question really regarding the application process. Probably, I think that colleagues like Cesar and Zoe could help us in complementing this answer. I don't know if Cesar, you feel like at ease in answering this one. I will first read it. The limit of 120 pages, part B, is considerably higher than the previous limits of characters. Does it mean that LIFE proposals should now be much more detailed?
No, I mean, in terms of description and level of detail of the description of the proposal, I mean, we are not requesting now more detail. So I would say, well, on the opposite, I mean, we don't want to receive also unnecessary huge books. So, but I mean, we want to, just in case, give you space, because now the system really cut, so that limit is an absolute limit. So if you write above that limit, everything that is above that limit is really deleted from the system, so we cannot see it. So that's the reason why. But otherwise, it's more or less as before.
If I can just add, so the page limit of course varies from call to call. So not all of the LIFE topics have a limit of 120 pages. Typically now for CT, it's 70 pages. I also want to add that this change in page limit is also linked to the fact that you're obliged to keep the instructions. So this is all taken into consideration, and I fully relate to what Cesar just said. Don't send us unnecessary long descriptions just to fill in the pages. And on the other hand as well, please bear in mind that we can't read extra pages. And I really insist here, respect all the instructions mentioned in the template, also related to the font, margins and so on. Don't try to gain extra space by playing with these. Thanks.
Thank you very much, you both. Probably I would go back to Cesar on the next one. It's labeled for CC mitigation and adaptation, but it's definitely not just for them. Can there be more than one lead beneficiary per work package? So could a work package have 2 leaders?
There, to be honest, I would like confirmation from a colleague. In principle, my answer would be no. I mean, there should be 1 leader, and then yeah, you may structure afterwards. But I would, in order to have a clear reference point, it's better to have a single work package leader. But then afterwards, you can distribute it, the tasks.
I can confirm it's, I mean, in the forms, you have to decide on a lead beneficiaries. Of course, then you have the possibility in the next sections to describe the division of the work. And in there, you can explain better, okay, you have a lead, but then you have this is a shared win. So there is space to explain, but you have to allocate a lead.
Thank you very much, Fabio. So here we still go into the details of the proposals and the comparison to the past. So the question is, previous LIFE proposal required details per action, amount of hours per action, and description of each role per action. Now it's not needed per work package, correct? Fabio, do you have the answer to this one?
Yes, I mean, please follow the Part B instructions. Indeed, we are not going down to the very details of going action per actions. We are working with work packages, so the details that will be requested will be around the work packages, the consortia, the partners, and but do see in the application forms is quite clear what we do request for this.
Thank you very much. So we see we are really going into the detailed question. We see that people out there are writing their proposal, they are putting them into the system, and would also like to know whether preparatory actions are still eligible, such as permits, requests, etc. Would like to take this one? Cesar, thanks.
And then also colleagues complement. So on the one hand, yes. So it is if it is necessary for the action, you can put a little amount, some amount of preparatory actions relevant for the implementation of the project. However, if the project has a lot of preparatory actions, it also means that it is immature, let's say. So probably you will get a low score. So yes, you can put preparatory actions, but if your project needs years of preparatory actions and a lot of activities in this sense, probably it will get a low score.
Thank you, Cesar. We keep on having this type of questions. I think people would like to know whether, so project management, does this new program, as the previous one, ask for a full-time project management, 100% of project duration? Who would like to reply on this one, and the others can complement? Fabio, maybe, are you?
That I'll do like Cesar. I'm not really sure. I think it was part of the discussion. I don't remember what we decided. I think normally you always have to have one dedicated person for the management. Of course, I'm not sure that we specifically asked for that. I don't know if any colleagues remember.
I can say I can complement. I don't know if it's specifically asked, but it's indeed the reality of a project, of a live project is a really demanding exercise. So you will need a full-time, no, not a full-time coordinator, but a coordinator will work through all the project duration. You cannot expect not to have a project management at some time of the project duration. You will have to have project management from day one until the end of the project, indeed. I don't know if other colleagues want to complement.
Yeah, it doesn't mean necessarily that you have a certain defined person that will be full-time there all the time. You can distribute that workload, but on average, yeah, you should count on, as Maria says, on a full-time if you want to afterwards not run into troubles. And yeah, so a recommendation, put a full-time.
Yeah. So Laurentina, get ready, because the next one, I'd like to give it to you. And do not be pressured, because there are more than 400 people watching us right now, I've just been told. So audit, is the 500,000 euro of contribution amount calculated on the overall project cost or by single partner? Is the audit in charge only for the coordinator?
So for the audit certificate, this is per beneficiary, as it is mentioned in the grant agreement. For the second part of the question, I'm not sure I get it, but if it means that you would like to know whether the costs are bear by the coordinator, the answer, it depends, in fact, because in fact, as a general rule, the cost should be incurred, the cost declared in the financial statement should be declared by the beneficiary. So if a beneficiary has to submit an audit certificate, he has to declare the cost in his own financial statement. So it's not specifically charge to the coordinating beneficiary. It's only the beneficiary who incurred the cost who will charge it in their financial statement.
Thank you very much, Laurentina. We'll stay on the financial side. One thing, yes. Sorry, Julia, to interrupting, just to make it clear, because I think maybe our previous answer on project management was not completely clear. So we don't recommend a full-time person doing just management. So 8 days a day, 8 hours a day during the entire project lifetime. What we meant is that we need project management through all the project duration. So you need, there will be management tasks from day one until the end, but it doesn't mean that you have to put a full-time equivalent working full-time on management on the project every day during all the project duration. So it's just to be clear so that nobody's getting it wrong.
Thank you very much, Maria, for
And
this
if I
presentation. Yes.
And if I may also take the point now that we return to that question, something that we see often in applications, which is maybe a weak point, is that maybe the coordinator allocates time for the project management, but sometimes they forget to allocate at least a little bit of time for the associated beneficiaries. So for the other members of the consortium, and well, they will need also to collect their timesheets, to prepare the things, and that is also a certain effort that has to be taken into account.
Thank you very much, Cesar. I have also a little information for those watching us. We still have more than 100 general questions to tackle. So rather than posting new questions, please really browse through the questions that are already there and like the one that you think are relevant for you. So you make sure that you can get an answer this morning. As I was saying, we stayed with the financial colleagues. For the next question, the cost per day is calculated on the basis of 215 working days per year. Will this also be the case for the timesheets? Gabriela?
I can go on because yes, because it was also the previous question. So yes, we will follow the same logic. And what is new now in the new live program is that now the timesheet shall record only the time which is spent on the project, while before the timesheet was meant to record and to reconcile all the work done by the personnel.
Thank you very much.
Not only for the project.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. If you can put your camera a little bit up, we will see also yes, exactly. Next time. Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, that's a nice one. So if you tell me you would like to take it, yes, I shoot it there. What is the earliest possible starting date of the live projects?
Yeah, so well, this you also will see it in the so in the corresponding call, you will see it in section 10. There is a section there about the starting date and the project duration. But in general terms, what is stated is that in principle, by default, it's the starting date is once the grant agreement is signed by both parties. However, it can be retroactive, the date, so earlier than the grant agreement signature, but it should be, there should be a very good reason for that. And in any case, the earliest starting date for the project would be after the submission of the full proposal, well, the proposal. Yeah.
Sorry if I can complement and give some indication. So we have a time to grant of 9 months, which means that after the deadline, there is a maximum duration of 9 months to actually start to have the grant agreement signed, and then the project can start. So this can give you an indication on the starting date. So bear this in mind when you prepare your proposal. Clearly, I mean, if successful, it won't start 2-3 months after the deadline. So bear this in mind as well.
Exactly. Wise suggestion, Zoe. Thank you very much. So I think we had already a question on a 2% rule, but maybe there are some details here that we didn't cover. Helping with that, financial colleagues. So is the 2% rule for permanent additional staff of government organization not there anymore in this program period? Is it there?
Yes, I can confirm. I think that Lorenzina already answered the question. So there is it is anymore there. It is anymore there. So we don't have the 2% rule in this live program.
Okay, that's a clear answer again. Please don't post again a question on the 2% rule. I think it's now clear for everybody. So next one, in the table, staff effort per work package is the person month of all participants of each work package counted or only of the leader participant? We're really going into the details here. I don't know if our detailed Zoe or Cesar can help us with this. Cesar, do you have?
I can.
Fabio, okay, thanks.
Yeah, if they do refer, because it's always, there is new template and new action. So if you see the template for the part B, you have at certain point after the workage sections, you have the summary You have, if I remember well, let me see, the overview of the work packages, where you have to list the work packages and then give some information, starting, ending, and then you have the staff efforts per participant. So to cut it short, it's about all participants, not just the lead participants.
Exactly.
Yeah, sorry to be long.
Thank you very much, Fabio. Please, I mean, we are now going question by question and quickly, and there are more questions being posted. So for the speakers, let me know if there is a question that you wish to take. And for example, for this one, call document and online manual make reference to budget cost on Annex 2 of the grant agreement. What's the structure of this Annex 2? Is there a template where? This sounds like something for Zoe or Cesar, but anyone that has an answer, Cesar?
Well, no, I think it refers to the template of the budget. So the detailed budget costs. It's an Excel file, yeah, and it's there in the templates.
Yeah.
Application.
Gabriela is nodding. I see her, so she's
Yes.
confirming that this is the case. Good. Okay. So, and that's also a financial question. Can all co-financing by the partner be covered by the cost of the institution's own staff? Who would like to take this one?
I can try.
Thanks, Laurentina.
Even if I think it's a tricky question, because as I already answered one of those questions that was relating to the possibility of beneficiary of the grant agreement to be co-financer as well, the answer was no. Now I have the feeling that this is the same question. It's because now it's referring to the staff of the institutions that are part of the grant agreement. So I would say the answer is no. But if I didn't get the question well, please get back to us with a clearer question, more detailed question, so that we can give you a more specific answer.
Thank you very much, Laurentina. This one, according to AGA, we might use timesheet with hours, linking hours to days by annual 8. Can we use internal timesheet to avoid double funding based on 1,720 hours with no other activity, I guess? Anyone who would like to take this, or shall we?
I can try.
Yeah.
I can still try. Again, I'm not completely sure. I think yes, because in fact, the requirement is to keep the timesheet reporting the time work on the project. And indeed, in principle, you see in the application forms that now we work on days, and the 215 days are translated to the are indeed corresponding to the 1,720 hours. I think you could keep your internal timesheets, and indeed, it's good that you try to report that you report your time in order to avoid double funding. However, we need to check again to confirm whether you have specific templates to follow. I don't think so, but we could also get back to you on this topic.
Yes. Thank you very much, Laurentina. And as you have been great in answering all those questions that nobody wanted, you get the prize on the prototype question. So, has the prototype budget category disappeared from the LIFE program? There are no more exceptions for eligibility of costs related to prototypes.
So, indeed, you have well spotted that the prototype category is not anymore in the list of cost categories. However, you could include it in the equipment cost category, and you have to follow the rules that your accounting rules on depreciation, on durability, also that Gabriela already mentioned, the durability clause. So now we don't have the exception, but it will be treated as an equipment. So in principle, you have the 100% full cost reimbursed if you fulfill the criteria of the clause on the durability. If not, you will have to follow your own accounting rules relating to the depreciation cost that you are following in your company.
Thank you very much, Lorenzina.
And
So,
maybe if
yeah,
I can complement,
of course.
just not to scare the applicants, that on prototype, if the rules of the depreciation, so you depreciate in the time of the project, and you fully depreciate in the time of the project, then you will get the full cost reimbursed. So basically nothing has changed, but you have to follow your accounting rules, as Lorenzina said. But still, there is the possibility to cover all the cost of the prototyping, although not anymore specifically mentioned. Prototype was, let's say, a construct of live program. There is nothing specific on. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Fabio, for complimenting. I'd give the. Okay, now they are jumping up because of the likes. So, is it possible to declare in the proposal Part A budget that a beneficiary will receive more than 60% of EU co-funding if it is balanced at project level? That's for the financial colleagues again.
I can take it if you want.
Thanks, Gabriela.
If I understand well, then my colleagues can complement. In case for a beneficiary, it is not possible to receive more than the EU percentage which is mentioned on the grant agreement. But then internally, they can also set other rules and then receive or give more or less. But formally, they cannot receive more than what is stated on the grant agreement.
Thank you very much. Anyone that would like to complement, or we are? That's everybody's happy with the answer. There is nothing more to add. I'd like to ask Cesar to help with the next one. Form B sets 3 mandatory deliverables together: exploitation plan, business plan, afterlife conservation plan. Should all be included in the proposal?
No, so the answer is doesn't mean that you have to put 3 by all of them by default there in the proposal. No, so it depends on the kind of project that you have. No, so for example, if it is more related to a nature-related project, for example, related to the protection of some areas or some species, then what applies is logically the afterlife conservation plan. If it is more a business close to market project, then if it is relatively mature, then business plan is what would apply. So you have to check from those options what is the most applicable option, and then well, do it. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't have a candidate for the next one. Let's see if some of you would like to take it. Is it preferable to make a separate work package be formed for the communication actions, or can this be integrated into different separated work packages? Who would like to take this one?
As I see silence, I can start.
Thanks, Fabio. Yes.
Well, I mean, it's the classical impossible to answer question, because it depends on the type of project, what are the actions, what is the focus. You have to see the coherence. If you have a number of communication, you feel that it's more efficient, more clear if they are all consolidated in one package, you do it. Otherwise, both may work. It's really impossible to answer.
I think Fabio, what we could maybe add is that there is no obligation as some applicants sometimes understand, to actually have that separate communication work package. But Fabio, I'm completely with you here. It completely depends on the nature of the action, how central this is for the nature of your action, but also for the nature of your stakeholders and targets that you would like to engage. So we are basically asking you to form this in the best for the best ability of your activity to deliver. Thank you.
Thanks, Annette. Indeed, that's always the case for the communication. It should be tailor-made and for the scope. So that's you know it better than we do for your specific case. I'll ask the next one to Lorenzina. So does the beneficiary has to provide own funding in the project?
Not necessarily. In fact, a co-financer could provide funding up to 40% of the matching funding. In fact, grant application must ensure a balanced project and sufficient other resources to implement the project successfully. So it could be own contributions, income generated by the action, or financial contribution from third parties. But indeed, this is a difference compared to the previous LIFE program. The beneficiary do not have to provide own funding to the project, but they can if they want.
Thank you very much, Lorenzina. I'll have Cesar on the next one. It's labeled climate, but again, I think it's relevant for the others as well. Yeah, I'll read it. What declaration should be uploaded? User manual suggests to upload declaration of public authorities and co-financing declaration. Please clarify.
Yeah, so here, yeah, because I was checking now. So the documents which are obligatory to submit and the ones which are optional are in principle stated in section 5 of the corresponding call document, which is admissibility and documents. And there, well, it's true that in the CCMA call, it's only listed mandatory annex, the detailed budget table and the participant information, and there is no information about no listing of optional annexes like the ones that are mentioned in this question. However, I've seen that, for example, in another call, environmental resource efficient, well, the quality of life call, we have listed those optional annexes. So I think this is something that should be clarified afterwards. Maybe there is something to check and clarify and then post it in the website. Yeah.
Yes, indeed, that's my feeling. If no one else would like to add something, we would go to the infrastructure question. That's I see it as a financial question. So what does it mean that that infrastructure may be declared as full capitalized cost? Does it mean that no depreciation occurs? Who would like to take this one?
I can take, but I think that we already answered. So Fabio, Lorenzina, and me. So indeed, this means that no depreciation occurs. So the cost declared can be the full capitalized cost, the full cost of the purchase cost of the infrastructure, even if it is I don't know. I think it is like this, but I don't know if Fabio want to add something.
It follows the same principles and
yes.
and the rules for the equipment. So you have to comply with the durability rules, but it follows the same rules. Yeah. Now this is financially. Technically, again, I recall, and this is a sort of trial. We will see how it works, and may need to revise this in the future if we are flooded with infrastructure project. Normally, first of all, we are not a program that finance infrastructure. There are other programs, the structural funds. We are not really equipped to finance major infrastructure projects. The infrastructure is eligible in the context of the project. There must be a certain proportionality in the way that the costs are distributed. I repeat it once again, please don't come with a full 100% infrastructure cost with a nice bridge in the middle of,
even if it's nowhere or it's a city. Please don't come with that, indeed. Yes. So here we have a question that is not anonymous. That's nice to see names. Anna, that's for the financial colleagues. So which budget transfers do not require an amendment? Who would like to take this one?
I
Ladies?
can take it, this one.
Thank you, Victoria. Yes.
As a general principle, the beneficiaries may transfer budget among themselves, between affiliated entities, between budget categories, without requesting an amendment at the time of the reporting. But changes like the description of the action, Annex 1, in some budget categories for volunteers, for lump sum costs, or for categories which have higher funding rate or of budget sellings, there they have to require an amendment. I can say that in case of doubt, please ask your coordinator to contact the EU project officer and ask if an amendment is requested or at least a simplified approval procedure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria. I have a little information to give because apparently there are some Slido users who are a bit anxious and complaining that their very liked questions are not being visualized here. The reason is because they are more relevant for the next sessions that will happen today and tomorrow morning. So that's why we need to be efficient and allocate them to the place where we have the expert colleagues and where most of people would expect those questions to be answered. So please be patient with us. And even if there is out there a nature question with 20 likes, it's there, we'll keep it, don't worry, we will answer it during the nature sessions that will start at 11. So a bit more than half an hour of patience for that, but still there are a lot of relevant questions that we need to answer here. I see Shade with that's basically a question for a future teller. I don't know if Fabio or Christian would like to take this one. I don't have the answer, frankly. So will the two-step proposal submission, I can remind you that that's what we used to have in the sub-program environment of the last programming period. Will the two-step proposal submission be reinstated in future calls?
Yeah, if I can reply to this question, we don't have a firm reply on that and not yet a decision. I can only say, in fact, for the standard action projects, this year we did a one-step approach because we were delayed with the publication of the call. We had a new life regulations, and the life regulations foresee also foresees the adoption of a multi-annual work program. So we had to prepare a 4 years program for the first 4 years, and that the adoption was then as well a bit of delayed, and therefore the call was only published in July compared to previous year when we started, in fact, in, let's say, April around. So the two-stage approach proved to be successful with the concept notes. So it was a good idea. It depends a little bit on the area, but again, I just repeat that it is not yet decided, but it could be reinstated in future calls as well. Again.
Thank you very much. So I have the feeling that Shade would like not to repeat the work that he did or she did already last year. I have my answer, but maybe Zoe could complement this. So, and then the others, the question is for a nature project, but I think everyone could be interested, those that would like to resubmit. Is there any quick way to export the text of a NAT project that wasn't accepted last year from the old e-proposal to the new one for recandidate the same project?
I can.
Yes, Cesar, and then maybe Zoe for CT. Thanks, Cesar.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the answer, unless someone corrects me from my colleagues, but the answer is no. Yeah, you will have to really make an effort there of transferring the information. There's no automatic way. Yeah. Also,
Yes, so-
because be careful, because also there is not a clear one-to-one correspondence total between the fields of the previous, and the format has changed to the application form. So be careful with that. Yeah.
And
As
for
far as
CZ?
for the energy efficiency project, we use the same e-grant system already. So your technical annex, remember, this is a Word document, a template that you have to download. And well, if you still have a copy of the Word document you worked on previous time, you can copy paste it into the new template. So please don't come up with old templates. That's very important. We are using live templates now. And don't forget to convert this into a PDF document and then upload it. But you can't retrieve it from your previous proposal. No.
Julia, can
yes.
I just compliment
Of course.
for Cesar? I mean, technically, you could extract from your proposal if you go to the export function and you do your export in I think it's Word. It's called Word. So you get a text. I would not recommend to do so. You can, because the structure of the proposal is completely different from the current part B. So you probably waste most of the time in trying to rephrase completely or restructure completely rather than start from a clean page. So yeah.
Yes, thanks, Fabio. We have a next question. So I can, okay, I would say that's mostly, we will discuss this definitely on the nature session, but maybe we can already give a basic answer now. So can the project be only based on best practices? Who would like to take this one? Fabio?
Well, I think this is good for the next session that we have on circular economy, because this year, contrary to the past, the circular economy and quality of life subprogram opens up to best practice. But if you want to know more, we can discuss the details in the separate session on circular economy.
Yes, apparently this was the question that people really wanted to see answered. So for that, stay for the session at 12 to discuss it further. Now we move to the next question about CVs. The user guide mentions to present if required in the call. And
may I just, before going to this question,
yes.
I mean, yeah, I mean, even though afterwards we would talk more, but I mean, regarding that of the best practices, I mean, just the main tip there is look very carefully at the project topics also, because some project topics are it says innovative character. So for those, well, it's more innovative character, it's not for best practices.
Indeed, true. Thanks, Cesar. So I don't know if it's actually, if you can stay with us for this one, Cesar. So the user guide mentions to present CVs if required in the call. And climate change mitigation call doesn't mention it, neither the participant information form. We edit anyway. I don't know if there is a specific difference there. Would you know it?
I mean, participant information, yes. Participant information form, yes. And that's a mandatory annex. But the CVs, no.
Okay. Thank you. Then there is a financial question. We have already talked about in-kind contributions, but I have to admit, I don't know if this specific answer was already given. So do third parties giving in-kind contributions have to be included in the list of participants in the application portal? So that's financial and application forms on the question. Would anyone have an answer?
I can try. I don't think they have to be included in this list. Participants are the one who are working, are implementing the action. The action tasks. The third party who gives contribution, they just contribute, but they are not implementing. So I think they should be mentioned in the Annex 1 because they are involved in the project and in the actions, but not necessarily in the list of participants.
Gabriela, I can add as well, if you go to the funding and tender portal, indeed, when you make your consortium, you can add entities as a partner, an associated partner, or an affiliated entity. But I could not see any option to add any third parties giving in-kind contributions.
Yes.
So I think this is probably the way.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's still, yeah, I could ask to answer how many partners should there be in the consortium? Is it a requirement to be from different countries, Annette?
Thank you, Julia. Yes, I can start and then colleagues can complement because in the principal line for the LIFE program is that it's based on a single applicant basis. So one applicant for in the different as a general principle. Having said this, there are differences in the sub-program, so you need to stay attentive to this because relating back to what Zoe was saying earlier on eligibility criteria, this of course is one of the most strong eligibility criteria which you cannot where you cannot find a workaround. I can start on the Clean Energy Transition Program. For example, we have a requirement for most funding topics of 3 eligible entities. And relating back to the previous question, affiliated partners are not counted in this minimum. So that's a small detail, but important one. So basically, they need to have partners in different countries in the number of 3, whereas for other sub-programs, that principle, the one applicant principle supersedes. So maybe a colleague from the other parts of the programs can complement. Thank you.
Yes, so would like to take specific the floor on this. Maybe Fabio or Cesar for the.
I mean, well, for the case of the large goals, the standard action project goals, in principle, one is enough, but well, typically the projects require, in order for a typical LIFE project that involves innovation or well, a certain degree of novelty and testing and so on, will for sure involve several partners, but it's something that is not compulsory. If you manage by yourself with just one partner, that's acceptable in principle by default. Then, for example, in the case of other calls, for example, the strategic projects calls, so for strategic nature projects or strategic integrated projects, there you have to have a minimum of at least 2 partners. Yeah, so the coordinator plus 1 more.
Thank you very much, Cesar. I think we gave a very complete answers now, and we can move to a financial question. So to what extent can the EU contribution differ between partners? Is it possible that a beneficiary receives 100% funding? Would like to take this one? Laurentina, Gabriela, Victoria.
I can try.
Thanks, Laurentina. Yes.
Yes, it's not completely clear to me. What I can say is that each beneficiary will have to enter manually the EU funding requested. It will, of course, the amount will depend on how the budget will be settled, meaning that it will depend on how much you will have as own funding and how much you will have as a fund from other co-financer. The system will calculate then the theoretical maximum amount of funding that can be requested. I'm not completely clear on the second question, the sub question. Is it possible that a beneficiary receive 100% funding? For me, it's not clear because you have the limitation of 60% in general for the SAP project. So if it didn't answer your question, please get back to us. Or if someone would like to complement or has another interpretation.
My feeling is that you gave partially a reply to this a few questions ago when you said that a coordinating beneficiary, for example, might even not contribute.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. So if you don't contribute, then you get that 100% funding, but I'm not an expert on this. So for yourself, basically. You don't have to
Okay.
cover your activities. This is the way I would interpret this question.
Okay, so it will be okay, 100% funding by the co-funder, the co-financer.
Yes.
Okay.
This is, but
Then
I don't know if this is, I didn't
let's
write the
see.
question.
Let's hope that this
If
answers
the
the
person
question.
who asked this question is not satisfied, please contact us on Cinea Life Inquiries, and we will maybe tackle the specific issue, because yeah, that's our interpretation for the moment. I'll stay with the financials. Can a partner co-financing rate exceed the maximum 60% if this is compensated by another partner requesting less? So here we're doing math and going back, subtracting and adding.
I think we have already partly so answered the question. So we say that a partner cannot have the co-financing cannot exceed the maximum percentage which is stated on the agreement. So the answer should be no. But then partners can compensate each other by distributing or by co-financing on the themselves, but according to partnership agreements. But for the perspective of the grant management, no, we can say no, they cannot exceed the maximum 60%.
Just want to clarify, because I hear a lot about 60%. Just bear in mind, all the different sub-programs and actions don't necessarily have the same co-financing rate. So 60%
yes, you're
applies
right.
to some of the proposals, some of the sub-programs, but not to all.
Thank you very
right.
much, Zoe. That's very important to remind, and also that's important. That's why it is important. If you are planning to write your proposal under a specific sub-program, please follow the question answer session of that sub-program, because there we can go more in details, even though it's here the place where we have the financial colleagues. So it's good to share these questions now. I think I could give this to Laurentina. So when can we expect, it's about money, and when you get the money, that's always important to start doing things. When can we expect the first payment of the EU funding? Laurentina.
Yes, thank you. So after the grant agreement signature, you will normally receive a first pre-financing to start working on the project. This is considered as a float to allow you to start the project. The rate will depend on the type of project. So in general, it will be 30% of the maximum EU funding for SAP and CAP. It will be 20% for SNAP and SIP, and 60% for operating grant and technical assistance. In some cases, this amount could be reduced or there might be no financing. This will depend on the result of the financial viability check and the need to provide a financial guarantee, but this is very specific. And pre-financing will be paid within 30 days of the entry into force of the grant agreement, or when the guarantee enters into force.
Thanks,
yes,
Laurentina. A little precision. I have operating grants bird tweeting here, and they remind me that it should be 70% for operating grants and not 60%. But to clear any doubts from this, there is a session tomorrow on the operating grants. You'll meet the colleagues there, and I think that's the best place to go into the fine-tuning of that specific type of grants tomorrow at 10 a.m. So next question, that's so general that I don't know to give it.
I can start.
Okay, so which documents do I need to submit for my application to be complete? Zoe.
Yeah, so I will start because there are some differences between the different calls. But so as a general rule, you will see when you go to the funding and tender portal and select the topic you're interested in, want to submit a proposal for, you will see you obligatory have to submit a part A, which is an online form you have to complete with all your consortium administrative data. You also have to complete a part B, which is the technical annex of your proposal. So you download a Word document. As I said, you respect the maximum number of pages. And I repeat, you keep the instructions and you convert this as a PDF document, which then you upload in the system. And you also have to submit a part C, which we already hinted at, which is dealing with the key performance indicators, which is also an online form you have to complete and save. Another obligatory annex is the detailed budget table, which is an Excel template you get when you show interest in a certain topic, and also the template related to the participant information we also hinted at. And I'm now going to the clean energy transition subprogram. There we have one specific topic on PDA, which is also requesting an investment table. And we have the possibility to upload an optional annex linked to letters of support. So if you have stakeholders who are really of interest to your proposal and who have shown support to your action, and this is relevant for your proposal, then you have the possibility to upload these documents as well. I let the colleagues complement for their subprograms.
I mean, from my side, maybe the only also message to take away is that to answer that question also later on, if you forget, you go to the call document and section 5, admissibility and documents, and there you have the list. Okay, so there it is very clear what are the documents. And also when you will try to submit your proposal, the system itself, you will see online, it will flag you some red lights and things if you don't have all the documents. So yeah, in principle, it will be clear to you if you miss something.
Thank you, Cesar. So the next one, I have the feeling that we already answered this one, but should co-financers be included in the list of participants in the application portal?
Yes, we have in part just answered the question. So co-financer are just third parties giving financial support. As the same is then for the third party given in-kind support, the co-financer just give financial support, but they don't implement action tasks. So following the same logic, I will say no, they don't have to be included in the list of participants.
Thank you, Gabriela. And I'll switch to Lorenzina for the next one. So can the self-employed participate as beneficiaries of a LIFE project? All types of self-employed or only sole traders?
So the organization can employ consultants who have their own company with specific work contract. However, to be considered as a personal, in the personal cost category, these consultants have to be self-employed, and the company form should be a sole trader, sole person. It means that there is no difference between the natural person and the company. So they does not legally separate the natural person from the own company. In all other cases, the consultant company with different forms might be accepted as subcontractor. However, they need to fulfill the condition to be accepted as a subcontractor. So they have to respect the criteria of best value for money, avoiding conflict of interest.
Thank you very much, Lorenzina. I'll give the next one. There is Federica asking a question, and I would like to give it to Cesar. So it's, is there any guidance that changes the previous guidance for project management and especially report production?
Yeah, so the answer is, well, there will be for sure. So we will have to adapt the guidance that we have so far. In particular, we have already developed, but not yet published, at least in some of the calls, the corresponding template for reporting for the periodic reports. Okay, so in this sense, so the answer is yes, but it will come in time because, well, for the moment, in any case, it's quite early.
Thank you very much, Cesar. Thank you, everybody. I see that we actually have just 1 minute left. and then we will get into the break and into the next session. You see, there are still many questions. I would like to just take two, which I think are quite relevant. For the rest, we will answer them in the next sessions, or please address us. So regarding the Horizon Europe question, because that's quite a topical element, maybe Maria or Annette would like to tell us if this will happen in life. So in Horizon Europe, applicants need to have a gender equality plan from 2022 calls on. I don't know if colleagues know this, but will this in the future be necessary for life as well? Is anyone aware of this?
Well, I can try, even if I'm not fully aware. So we didn't have this in H2020 and the energy calls of H2020. I don't know what are the plans for Horizon Europe, and this refers only from 22 calls onwards. So there is no discussion so far that I'm aware to have this gender equality plan in life, but to be seen in the future if there is a need for doing so. We might have to follow the H Europe example, but nothing has been decided yet. So for sure, not for 2021 calls, and to be seen in the future if it really makes sense for life. We might learn from H Europe once they put this in place, and we might have to take a decision then.
Okay, and then I would like to close with the question on the exactly on this one, and for the remaining question we will just go back to I will invite you to go back to the life inquiries if it's not clear. And I see that there is something on KPI. You know that the expert on KPI, our colleague Solon Mias, will be there on the circular economy and quality of life session, so probably he could also help us there. So last question for this round. I think it's for Cesaro, for Fabio, but it's quite straightforward. We failed proposal submission 2 times. Can we submit the application the 3rd time?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, just to save Cesar, yes, you can. You can. Obviously, you have to look at the current call, look at if things have changed in terms of the priorities. You have to adapt the proposals to the new structure. You can submit as many times as you wish, I would guess that you have also looked at the feedback that you received from the evaluation. Please take that into account, and frame it in the new context.
Yes, thank you very much. Maybe some of the CET colleagues would like to add, in case this was the case for our Horizon Energy Efficiency proposal.
I can just agree, but I really insist on please have a look at the topic descriptions, because these evolve, and it's not because a proposal was really very relevant last year that it still remains relevant for this call. So look into that, and please take into account the feedback you received indeed. And you will see you can mention the proposal reference of your earlier application. So please do so as well for your resubmissions.
Yeah, just to highlight a bit the message from SOE. I mean, at least for the clean energy transition, we have 18 topics that have been drafted following the recent policy developments, the energy policy developments at the European level. So your proposal, if it's been submitted several times, it might not be up to date. It might not be matching the specific topic requirements. So you'll have to look at each of the topics, see what is required. It is clear there are clear objectives, clear scope, clear expected impacts, and only the proposals that really fit into the topic will pass the evaluation process. So just resubmitting for resubmitting wouldn't make any sense, and you will have to look at what is required in this year call.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all. This was really intense, nearly 2 hours of giving answers for all of you. So a big bravo from my side, and thank you all for listening to us. Now there will be a nice video with testimonials from Live Project. That's very encouraging for new applicants. And then you will be in the good hands of my colleague Silvia Barova, and with their Anita Fassi and Frank Vassen on the nature session. There are a lot of questions there as well, but please keep posting your nature questions and the others. We will take first the nature ones. And yes, enjoy video, enjoy life. I'll see you at the end of this morning. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all. Bye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this second session of today, where we'll have nature. It's a nature and question and answer session dedicated to the Nature Call 2021 under the LIFE program, and then moderate the session today, where we'll do our best to reply to the extent possible to most of the questions that you have. And then we see that there's a lot of questions. And I'm here today with my dear colleagues, Anita Fazio, that works for the LIFE program, and Frank Wassen, that works in the nature unit of DG Environment. As you know already, that have been in the previous session, that's a session that it's recorded, it's broadcasted. And the way to interact and to post your questions is through Slido. And then with the next slide, we can show you. So here with the QR code, you can join the Slido, go in your browser and use the hashtag LIFE21. And because we have a limited time and we see that there is a lot of questions coming from you, I would not spend any more time, but start directly with the questions. So the first question is apparently a very popular one, and it's asked whether can the project be only based on best practice? And I think, Anita, you can reply to this question.
Yes, thank you very much, Silvia, for giving me the floor, and warm welcome from myself as well to all of you. So I'm Anita Fazio, I'm project manager in CINEA and responsible for the Nature Call. This question, I think I saw it already in the previous session, but I will give it, the reply will be more Nature Call oriented. So yes, under the Call for Nature, 100 best practice projects can be eligible as long as the description of the priority area targeted does not specify it should be something different. So in case there's no specification, any priority area can be addressed with best practice projects or innovative projects. It's really up to you. There are, however, two cases of projects that should not be pure best practice. Not that they will fail, but they will probably be not considered as priority projects. And in those cases, best practice projects cannot be eligible. They are not considered priority because best practices are covered by other funding mechanisms. For example, projects targeting the health and resilience of managed forests through closer to nature forestry practice need to be more demonstrative. Therefore, they need to present a certain degree of innovation when combining conservation and productivity objectives. So this is one case. The other case is more relevant for the agricultural sector, where the agricultural priority area, where projects should have a more innovative approach to restoring high biodiversity landscape features. So in these two priority areas, projects should have a certain degree of innovation. Otherwise, projects 100% best practice or innovative projects are very much welcome. I don't know if Frank wants to add anything on this, because this is really related to the policy priority areas in the call.
Yeah, thank you, Anita, and good morning to everybody. Just to add that under the agricultural priority, what I would expect mainly as project types that are not best practice are those that demonstrate new agri-environmental practices. This is something that has been supported by LIFE in the past, but we know there is always scope for new findings, new innovative measures including for agri-environment. And so that is really something that will remain a priority in the future. But just more generally speaking, I think that you have to keep in mind that LIFE is a limited fund. And whenever an action can be more easily financed by another program, where there is perhaps much more funding available, first consider using these other funds, and only when you can clearly show that this is not possible, then go for the LIFE program.
Yes, thank you very much to both of you. So the next question that we have in Slido is asking, does the 25% rule related to the budget dedicated to concrete conservation actions still apply for the new program? And Anita, if you
Yes,
can take this question.
sure. As you can see from the code document, it's very clearly specified there. All projects must have SMART objectives and results. And this will enable the evaluators to understand how important or how urgent the project is. So concrete outcome-based activities are a precondition for prioritization. So indeed, we no longer have the 25% rule for concrete conservation actions related to a certain amount of budget that needs to be dedicated to concrete conservation actions. However, projects must still deliver concrete and substantial conservation benefits and impacts in order to be scored higher. So pure intellectual, academic, research projects are out of scope in this case.
Thank you very much, Anita. So then we go to the next question. Can I include in the project budget visibility budget for visitors in facilities? Anita?
Yeah. So visitors infrastructure are a priori not eligible. However, under exceptional cases, the creation of small-scale visitor infrastructure can be eligible, but there are some conditions that need to be fulfilled. The first one is, of course, this infrastructure needs to be essential to achieve the objectives of the project. It needs to clearly be related to a threat or a pressure targeted by the project. The second condition is that the investment in the infrastructure needs to be limited in comparison to the overall project budget. So reasonable, cost-effective. And the third condition is that, of course, the investment the applicant would need to prove that the investment cannot be financed by other funding instruments at regional, national, or EU level. And so
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anita. It's very clear. So we have the next question. So to what extent it is required to present exact measurements with respect to habitat improvements? Anita, Frank, both can take this question. Okay, Frank.
I'm happy to take it, but maybe just the word measurement is not clear because it could refer to measuring something, quantification, or measures, because we know that non-English speakers often confuse the terms. So I'll answer to the two. And the answer is quite straightforward. The clearer your proposal, and the clearer you explain what you want to do, both in quantitative terms and in qualitative terms, describing what kind of measures you intend to do, well, the clearer the proposal is and the easier it is for the evaluators to assess it. And vice versa, if you're not clear what you want to do, this cannot be properly assessed in terms of cost effectiveness, in terms of relevance, in terms of efficiency. So just, I think as a general advice, be very clear what you want to do, quantify if it's possible. Sometimes it might not be possible, then I think you can make a case and explain why that's not possible, but try to be as clear as possible in terms of describing the measures.
Yes, thank you very much, Frank. So we go to the next question, which is, does my nature project need to be transnational? Frank?
Well, Obviously, from an EU perspective, there is always an added value in the support of transnational projects. So clearly, a proposal that would have a transnational component would be something that we prefer. And as you know, there is to some extent, the LIFE program even allows transnational measures outside of the EU, but I would invite you to read the application documents because there is more explanation there. But on the other hand, it is not a requirement. A local project that is well designed with a clear focus and perhaps a clear and important priority would be perfectly eligible and might have good chances to be supported.
Sylvia, can I add something concerning this?
Please.
Yeah, indeed, there's no need, as Frank said, for the project to be transnational. There's no minimum required number of participants or countries in the project. However, you will see in the code document that during the evaluation process, a bonus of 2 points can be granted if it is demonstrated that the transnational cooperation between member states is essential to reach the objectives of the project. So you can get 2 more points there. So for you, you might think that going transnational can be an advantage, but keep in mind that if you are artificially including another country, another member state in the partnership, just to get these 2 extra points, this can actually fire back. Not only it can lead to 0 bonus points, but it can also have an impact on the award, the first award criterion on technical quality, because the project design will not be positively assessed, for example, including its geographical focus. So be very careful not to artificially or force the transnationality approach into your project. It can really fire back. We've seen this already in the past, that's why. And one last thing, to get these 2 bonus points, as I said, it needs to be demonstrated that the transnational cooperation only between member states, and this only refers to member states, is essential. And more than one country needs to be in the partnership, and activities need to take place in more than one country. These are the conditions to get 2 additional points. That's all from my side.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anita, for these very important clarifications. So this brings us to the next question, which is related to the KPI. So the indicator biodiversity, there we asked that the number of species before and after the project is reported at the beginning. And then the question is, if I work increasingly on one single rare species, as often the situation is, whether this, how I understand the question, but you might also understand it differently, whether this will kind of, yeah, what I should put.
As far as I understand, well, for the KPIs, you see in the application form, you have part C, and the KPIs that you need to fill in are very, very general. So maybe that's what you're referring to. So for the biodiversity KPI, you only need to include the number of species you are addressing, you are targeting in your project. For example, your project, you say, I work on increasing one single rare species. Let's say the lynx. So you will put starting value 0 and value 1, because you will be working in the project with one species. If you want to give more information on the population of the species, on the number of individuals for that species, then there is a comment box in part C where you can add more information. However, keep in mind that in the part B, so in the technical proposal, you are requested to provide a clear and quantified description of the conservation issue targeted, but also you need to provide a clear information on the background, your starting point, and provide a quantified baseline. So in that case, this might not be relevant, let's say, for part C indicators, at the application stage, but it is relevant that you give as much information as you can in the technical proposal, as actually Frank said earlier. The more information we have on the baseline, the more it is possible to understand what impact the project will have. So it's very important information. But again, yeah, the question is not very clear, Sylvia. I don't know if I answered correctly.
Frank?
There is a bit of an underlying question here. Is a project penalized if it only covers one species? I think the answer is maybe no.
No,
a project can perfectly focus on a single threatened species, as was always the case underlying.
Yes, I would suggest that Stefano, who asked this question, if you didn't find the reply, because the question is not really clear, and I think three of us understood it in a bit of a different way, please feel free to send your question to the functional mailbox if you haven't heard the answer that you are looking for. Then we go to the next question. If my project fits only in one policy priority and I plan to work only on bringing nature to agricultural land, will I have a lower priority for funding? And this I invite both of you to reply. So Anita?
Well, maybe this is a bit more for Frank.
Okay.
Projects need to fit at least one priority area and at least one intervention area to have a higher chance of funding.
Yes.
Right, Frank.
Well, maybe just to add that, I mean, if you look at the way the prioritization is done, it is two-dimensional. On one hand, it is looking what are the features, the species or habitats I want to improve. So I think there should at least be these two dimensions. Something, if you say we want to work on agricultural land, for example, promoting agri-environmental practices, and in particular, we said testing new or innovative practices would be a priority. Well, you should be able to say what species and habitats are expected to benefit. And if these species and habitats are some that are absolutely not threatened, well, then I think it would not be covered as considered as a high priority under LIFE. But as you know, in most cases there is, well, these measures are supposed to have a positive impact on certain species and habitats, so you should be able to know which ones. Otherwise, we would consider that your proposal is not sufficiently smart, specific, measurable, time-bound, and perhaps you don't even know yourself what the outcome of a project would be. So just saying that we are working on agricultural land is clearly not enough, but you probably have some additional arguments to bring, and then the project could indeed be a priority for funding.
Yes, thank you very much, Frank. I would invite the audience, please, if you have questions which are similar or you're interested in a reply on a question, please don't forget to like the questions, because as you have seen, we take the two questions in order of their popularity. So please follow Slido. If there is a question that is similar to the one that you want to ask, please like it. So the next question. So nature and biodiversity. Yeah, it's again for nature biodiversity topic. Can inventory of the target priority species in one of the applicant countries be included as an action in the project application? Anita, would you like to take this question?
Yes. Well, it's a very general question, difficult to give a precise. It depends very much on the project and how it is designed. I think yes, inventory of a species can be part of the project as long as it's not the main purpose of the project, and that actually concrete conservation activities targeting that specific species follow or are part of the project itself as well, I would say. So I would not exclude them, exclude such activities completely from the project. There can be some sort of preparatory activities, but again, it depends. They have to be reasonable in terms of budget and and scope.
Yeah,
I mean,
Frank, would you like?
The most important element is that you can clearly argue that this is necessary for the project outcomes. Because if it's just an inventory for the purpose of an inventory, it's clearly not something that we would like to support. But if the purpose is really to make an inventory because that's the first step that is required to implement the project and to have the success in terms of improving the status of the species and habitats, you need to argue that clearly, and then it might actually be eligible and would be accepted as a project.
Yes,
Absolutely.
thank you to both of you for the elaborated answers. So the next question, is it possible to include activities targeting red list species or Annex 4 species when working in a Natura 2000 site? Frank, would you like to take this question?
Well, yes, this is perfectly possible. And in fact, there is a lot of synergies between working on red listed species and working on the conservation objectives of the site. So if you can show that this is not contradicting the conservation objectives, then this is perfectly possible. And it is possible both inside and outside Natura 2000. There's no difference there. There would be a problem if you would focus on, let's say, certain red listed species, and promoting these species would be contrary to the conservation objectives. I know, let's say, take a theoretical example. This is a site on which, let's say, there is important grasslands, and you would like to work on the forest species. That would, of course, be contradictory. But I think in all other cases, and we would really encourage you to show what the link with the conservation objectives of the site is. This would be perfectly possible.
Yes, thank you very much for this answer. So the next question, obligation for concrete conservation actions in life, nature as a program are no longer mentioned. So we can produce a successful project based on intellectual actions. So who would like to take this?
Well, I already replied actually concerning the 25% rule and the concrete conservation actions rule. Pure intellectual academic research projects are out of scope. They need to be, projects need to be outcome based. They need to be include concrete conservation activities.
Yes, and the term intellectual is a bit broad. Maybe some people understand also communication or awareness raising actions as intellectual. I mean, there might be very specific circumstances where awareness raising activities are necessary. In particular, for example, when it comes to the conflict species or problematic species, or where there is a need to raise awareness on accidental mortality of species. So in those cases, there might be a good argument for, let's say, communication or awareness raising actions, but they should always be very closely linked to the project outcome and necessary for those.
Yeah, and if I may add, yes, they should be, of course, communication activities, awareness raising activities should be part of the project, but should not be the main focus of the project.
Yes, thank you. Then, so the next question that we have in Slido, nature SAP, so with most activities for both priority and non-priority habitats and species are equal to 67% of total eligible costs. So that's one question, as I understand it again, and not again for the project with all activities targeting the priority species is 75%, correct? Yeah, so that's the question, is it correct? So Anita, would you like to take the question, and Frank?
Yeah. Well, if I understand correctly, I need to explain how the co-financing works in case of 67% and 75%. Well, to be entitled to 75% co-financing, the project must exclusively target species, priority species and habitats, meaning that all the species and all the habitats targeted need to be considered priority. What is it meant with priority? Priority can be the priority species in the Habitat Directive annexes, so the asterisk species. It can be species that are in an unfavorable bad conservation status with a declining trend, U2-, therefore, at EU and national level biogeographical region assessment, or the species is assessed as endangered or worse in the EU IUCN Red List. So when the species or the habitat fall into one of these categories, they are considered priority. And if the project exclusively targets such priority species, then it is entitled to 75%. A project is entitled to 67% if there is a clear focus on priority species, meaning most of the species or habitats targeted are considered priority, fall into the categories I just mentioned. So I hope this is clear now. I don't know if Frank, you want to add something.
Well, maybe a very simple way to look at it is to ask the question, is there any action in my project for which I cannot argue that it will benefit any of the species that are, or habitats that are priority? And if the answer is yes, then you automatically fall into the 67%. And maybe just what Anita mentioned is it's an important change compared to the past, because now the range of species and habitats that are eligible to 75% is much higher. It includes the red listed species, the ones in the habitats in unfavorable conservation status, etc. So in principle, it is not a restriction compared to the past. It is actually an enlargement, because there's more species and habitats that are eligible. And in fact, I think it's also the most important ones. But at the same time, we had to put the limit somewhere, because otherwise everything would be at 75%. And keep in mind that if we would have only projects with a 75% co-funding rates, we would have much lower number of projects and the output of the program would be lower. So of course, we have designed a mechanism to steer the applicants towards the conservation priorities, and hopefully that will work.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you. So the next question, which is again related to the best practice, the best practices in a LIFE project, and we elaborated on that probably just briefly. You can also say a few words. So the question is it possible to replicate the best practice on a LIFE project, or is it necessary to add an innovation to best practice? So Anita,
very
Frank.
very simple answer. It is possible. You don't need to add something new. What is most important is that you can show that there is a clear conservation benefit.
Yes, thank you. So the next question. So it concerns restoring EU protected habitats outside Natura 2000. Is it obligatory to designate the site as a Natura 2000? Are other means acceptable to conform to LIFE requirements? Who would like to take the question?
I can answer it. Sorry, Anita.
No, go, please.
Well, I think, yes, I mean, first of all, it is perfectly possible to restore habitats outside Natura 2000. And as far as I understand the reading of the application guidelines, there is no requirement for designation as Natura 2000. But keep in mind that any such investment is a big investment and you need to ensure sustainability. So if it's not about designating a Natura 2000 site, and if it's not about, let's say, putting this restored area into some strong national status, which would also be a solution, you need to find a good argument to show that the investment is sustainable. And if you don't have that argument, or if you cannot show that there will be a sufficient guarantee that in the future these investments will be sustained, then we would question that aspect of the proposal. Is that correct,
Yes.
Anita?
Yeah, yes. I may maybe add that in case the project is supporting the objectives of the Birds and the Habitats Directive, then it is eligible to work outside Natura 2000 sites if it improves the ecological coherence also of the Natura 2000 network and the connectivity aspect of the between Natura 2000 sites. So indeed, but in that case, yes, as you said, it is important then the long-term protection is guaranteed by the project end, either through contractual agreements or land use planning at the most relevant administrative level. But it needs to be, sustainability needs to be guaranteed indeed, yes.
Yes, thank you. Maybe I just can I ask just to complement that we have quite a well elaborated section in the code document regarding that as well. So please have a look. But just bear in mind that when you work outside Natura 2000 on area-based actions on habitats improvements for species, so EU habitats, then you really need to secure long-term sustainability. And what we are asking for is a long-term contractual agreement from the landowners or land users. And then what we are looking for is the contractual agreements in the length of 30 years or so in order to sustain the results of the investment. Sorry, that I also compliment, my role is a bit different today. So this brings us to the next question, which is, can my project target domestic honeybees? Anita, would you like to take it?
Well, it's very easy and quick. No, because projects can only target wild species and natural and semi-natural habitats. So domestic species are out of scope.
Exactly. Such projects are not eligible.
They are not eligible, no.
Yes. So the next question, on what basis can one argue for the exploitation of results in non-market oriented projects, for example, like as the nature project? How should this part of the impact be oriented? Who would like to take the Anita?
Yeah, maybe I can say something. Indeed, when we speak of exploitation of results, we are maybe more thinking of the circular economy and quality of life sector, let's say, because there's C2M types of projects are allowed and so on. For nature, what is important in the end is that the continuation of the results are guaranteed after the project end. So the applicant will need to explain how every result and every activity of the project will be continued, exploited, or maybe also shared or replicated in other areas with other beneficiaries. So this is the way I would interpret the term exploitation of results in the case of nature projects.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Anita. Again, if that's not the answer that you were looking for, you can send more elaborated question to the functional mailbox. So the next question, could you please clarify if the 75% funding available for projects focused on priority habitats, both inside and outside Natura 2000 sign? Frank?
Yes. It can be both inside or outside. These are two different aspects. And what is relevant for outside is the question of sustainability, as we mentioned before. But otherwise, this is there is no specific restriction in relation to that. And maybe keep in mind that many of the species also that are eligible for 75% are not Natura 2000 species. And there are species listed in Annex 4. Red listed species, so in some cases it will be totally impossible to work inside Natura 2000, and that wouldn't restrict the co-funding rate.
Yes, thank you very much, Frank. It's very clear and straightforward. So the next question is, what is the difference between dissemination, replication, and exploitation of results? Would like to take this one, Anita?
Okay, yes. I think a bit I answered in the previous question. Dissemination, I would say, it might be more related to communication activities when you disseminate information about the project, awareness raising, the results of the project to a more wider public or to a more specific public, depending if you want to transfer knowledge as well. But I see this more related or linked to communication activities. Replication is more when you want to multiply the impact of the project and making sure that what you are doing will be also done elsewhere, or that the methodologies you're using will be used in another context, in another area, for the same species, for a different species. So you replicate or let's say you pave the way towards the replication of your activities, of your results in the future. And exploitation, yes, indeed, it's a bit tricky, but I would say it could be more related to how your results will be used after the project end, and how they will be continued after the project end.
Okay, thank you very much, Anita, for that. For this reply, I think we can take the next question. Is it required to include mostly Natura 2000 sites or protected area sites in a project where there are only a few protected sites due to limitations of an urban setting, for example? Frank, would you like to take the question?
Yes. Well, if you would have two identical projects, and the only difference would be that one is taking place in Natura 2000 and another would be taking place outside, we would of course prefer the one on Natura 2000 because there we have a better guarantee of the long-term sustainability and the match with EU policies. And we would assume that if a member state has designated an area as Natura 2000 and another not, it's because the Natura 2000 site is more important. So there is a bit of a priority element there. But in terms of eligibility, a project that is taking place outside Natura 2000, and maybe there is a very good reason, like here I mentioned the urban setting or the target species, or what do I know, this is perfectly eligible. I mean, there is no eligibility restriction to that kind of project anymore.
Okay, thank you very much, Frank. So let's take the next question. So, project targeting large carnivores that contributes where in countries, I'm sorry for that, in countries where large carnivores have already a favorable conservation status will not be considered a priority, isn't it? That's the question. And then I can invite both of you to reply. Anita?
Oh, well, maybe it's more for Frank, but as far as I understand from the call, in such cases, they count as much as U2 status species in terms of priority, because even if they're not Natura 2000 triggering in some cases, because such projects would be in line with the priority EU Birds and Habitats Directive, the policy priority, and would be in line with the intervention area protecting our species. Of course, in case the project is focusing on reducing the mortality of the species, for example, poisoning, illegal killing, and preventing conflicts and promoting coexistence with humans. So I don't think it would be considered less of a priority, but I ask the confirmation to Frank.
Well, it's a good question because, as you have seen, we have two elements in the prioritization. One is the conservation status, and the other one is the policy priorities. If a population would be in a good status or with a positive trend in a given member state, then from the conservation status perspective, this would not be a priority. But then we said, well, there are situations where there is nevertheless a need to work on these species, in particular because of the damages that they may cause. and in some countries where we have increasing populations of large carnivores, we also have increasing conflicts. So there is still a need to work on these issues in some countries, but you will need to show that this is the case. And just having a very good population for a long time in a country, having good mechanisms for mitigation and compensation in place, and this should be primarily be financed through other than life means, for example, the common agricultural policy. But in those cases, we would really question the added value of a project. So it is up to you to argue in your project why you think you are falling into the priority topic that we have mentioned, even if the trend of the population of the species would be positive for the moment. So it will be assessed on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you very much to both of you. The next question. Are urban greening projects considered as area-based? So, Frank, would you like to take the question?
Well, I think I never thought about this question, but if you really put some greenery somewhere, you work on an area. So even if it's on a rooftop, that's area-based. I think the difference between area-based and non-area-based is when you work on issues such as illegal killing or accidental mortality and all these things that you cannot link to a particular area, where it is more the behavior of people or technological solutions. In all other cases, we would consider something to be area-based, including in urban areas.
Yes, thank you very much, Frank, for that. And again, I would invite the person that asked that question, check also the code document, because also there is elaboration of what we consider as area-based actions. So the next question, can you make some example or best practices of activities do you expect? I can give you the question, but I also would like also to invite you to have a look at the project database, because there is a plenty big wealth of projects which you can also see what have been financed before that. But if, yeah, Anita, Frank, would you like to give a few examples?
Yeah, for governance.
Well, this is a very specific area, and when you look at the application guidance, you will see that many of the rules that we were just discussing do not apply to these kind of projects, which are really more about promoting transnational cooperation on very specific issues, training, and so on. And I think it's not on us to say what are the actions. It's on you to propose these actions. But indeed, I think that I mean, it's not my specialization, but I would really also suggest, as Sylvia, to look at the database and to see what kind of projects have been financed in this domain. And keep in mind, this is also for a very specific group of stakeholders that are, I think, listed in the document.
Yes, just probably a brief example that comes to my mind. Currently, we have a project which deals with the illegal killing of poisoning, for anti-poisoning in the Balkans. And basically what this project does is transfer the expertise and the best practice that has already been tested in Spain, for example, where they train all the also enforcement chain and so on and so on. And they kind of worked on that to train the police, to train the judges, and so on, so that there is a good prosecution when there is a crime. And this is now transferred in the Balkans, where we have increased that issue. But that's a governance project. That's a project that is financed under the nature governance subprogram. So we have the next question, which is, could you please confirm that a capacity building to promote compliance, monitoring, and enforcing of EU laws is accepted as a concrete action? And I think I just replied to that. That's one possibility, is that you apply for nature governance project, but also we've seen such kind of actions, of course, in, let's say, the traditional nature projects. And if my colleagues can complete, if you would like.
Yeah, these are very strategic actions, and I think we have more explicitly said that these kind of actions are something that could fall under the specific governance part, but also in the frame of the SNAPs. So I would rather see these there in the SNAPs or in the governance part, unless you can really show that there is a specific need linked to your specific project objectives to carry out such actions. But I think if we, as a general answer, we are not excluding any type of actions as long as you can show that they are useful when necessary.
Exactly. So the next question. For the nature SAP call. So the call mentions projects for improving the biodiversity focus. Which kind of actions would be aimed on improving the biodiversity focus? Who would like to take this question?
Anita?
Well, it's a very, very general question. There's no specific reply. It's just the scope of the nature call is that of implementing and enforcing EU legislation and policy on nature and biodiversity. That's the whole objective of the project. And then you have areas of intervention you can choose from, and specific policy areas you can choose from. Everything is detailed in the call document itself. So I wouldn't know how to answer this very general question. Have a good look at the call document.
Exactly. Have a look, good look at the call document. If you don't find your answer, please, you're invited to send the question to the functional mailbox, but I would invite you to elaborate a bit more, because somehow taken out of the context, also for us, it's a bit difficult to understand what exactly it's meant by that question. So this takes us to the next one. Can actions still be eligible if part of them started before, let's say 1 year, the official start of the project? Anita, would you like to take the question?
So this is a bit tricky, depends on what type of actions you're talking about. So it's difficult to give a very specific answer. Normally, annual or recurring activities, even referring to habitat management, that are already ongoing before the start of the project are not eligible. So you would really need to argue why they are essential for the implementation of the project. And I'm not sure this will be assessed on a case-by-case basis. So, so actions need to be significantly different from previous or already ongoing actions in terms of frequency or in terms of intensity. So yes, again, this is really on a case by case. You really need to explain and justify in your proposal why these actions should be financed through the LIFE program.
Sylvia,
if they are already ongoing.
Can I briefly come back to the previous question? Because
and actions which starts after the start date of the project. The grant agreement might be signed later, say month ago or 2 months ago, month after, 2 months after, but the eligibility is the official start of the project, and that's the rule. If that's the question that was
indeed,
meant.
Celia, sorry, I interpreted completely differently. I interpret it as ongoing or recurrent activities. But indeed, the financing is retroactive. So even if you have signed the project, the grant agreement signature happened at a certain date, but the project had officially started earlier. This is, but the starting date of the project counts, not so much the signature meant. If that was the question, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That was the question. Frank, so on the previous question.
Yeah, so the reference to improving the biodiversity focus, that was linked to a target under the new biodiversity strategy for improving the protected area coverage in the EU. You know, there is this target for that by 2030, 30% of EU should have some level of protection that is relevant for biodiversity. And some member states intend to implement this target by looking at existing protected areas that have a very weak focus on biodiversity such as landscape protection areas, for example, and see to what extent they can improve the focus of these protection status on biodiversity. For example, having specific, let's say, conservation objectives for species and habitats for these protected areas, rather than creating new areas or designating new areas. So this is a very specific context. And if you want to know more about this, there is a process under the biodiversity strategy now in relation to these protected area targets. There are some guidance documents that are currently being finalized, which will be available by the end of this year, but which are not yet final.
Yes, thank you. We are approaching the end of our session. So we still have 2 questions to reply, and probably there might be more coming later on. People might ask us via the send us an email. But I would suggest that we are brief in replying these questions. So the first one is, our project under the priority green, urban and peri-urban areas considers space for nature? Do they have highest priority? Frank, would you like to take it briefly?
Well, they are considered as space for nature very clearly. If they have area-based components, do they have the highest priority? Well, this depends on the scope of a project, and theoretically this could be the case, because we know, for example, that in urban parks sometimes you might have red-listed species. So if these urban parks are really very important for the species, it could be a priority. And we know concrete examples where this is the case. For example, deadwood beetles in urban parks. So it's a case-by-case reply. It's not automatically the highest priority.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Frank. And the last question, the reply is very straightforward. Is it eligible trying to find a usage method to exploit invasive species from Natura 2000 site areas, among other activities on conservation in the same area? Frank, Anita?
It sounds like an innovative idea. And in fact, if that would help, let's say, make the activity sustainable, because there would be perhaps a market solution or something else to the use of invasive species to get rid of it. Yes, I think this is perfectly possible in the project. And there have been examples like that in the past.
Okay, thank you very much. With this, first, I would like to thank to all of you who stayed with us, sent your questions, and then I hope you all found a reply to your questions. I would like to thank very much Frank and Anita for their time in this session. I would like to invite all the audience. Please read carefully the documents if you, we hope you decide to apply for a funding. Read carefully the documents. Also watch the videos. All the recordings of today and tomorrow's sessions will be available in the next coming days online. We also have very detailed videos presenting the topics, how to comply, how to present your budget, and so on, which are also available online. Please consider spending time and watching those. We also have a very detailed frequently asked questions document elaborated for each of the sub-programs. Please also look in those, and then if you cannot find an answer of your questions, feel free to send them via functional mailbox. With that, I would like to close this session. And what is next? We will show you a video that will present the LIFE award winners from the last LIFE award. And then it will be my colleagues from the Circular Economy and Quality of Life team. So they will reply to your questions posed by Slido, and Fabio Leone will moderate this session. So thank you very much to all of you for your patience and interest, and good luck with the application.
Welcome back. So now it's time. So you followed for those that followed, there was a session on nature. Now we are going to focus on circular economy and quality of life. We have, I'm Fabio Leone, moderating this session, and we have a lot of people in the background waiting for answering your questions. Just quickly, we have Francesca Torre, Mario Leonetti, Solon Mias, Aurelio Politano, Michel Quicheron, and Cesar Sioannes. All colleagues involved in different thematics, so I may call upon them if there are specific needs in their sectors. I'll try to distribute and not answer myself as much as possible. I have a privilege in being a moderator, but so we can start. If I can see the, indeed, please send your questions to Slido, Live 21. As it was said before, try not to create new questions always, but please have a look at what is there and try to vote or put the thumbs up to those that that are more relevant for you. So we can start with the first questions, which is highly voted, 45 thumbs up. That is, can the project be only based on best practice? I may leave the floor to Aurelio. Do you feel to answer?
Yes, I can try. Good morning, everyone. I can try, and then in case you complement or so colleagues complement. This is a kind of a novelty in the new life. So the quick answer is yes, but the tricky thing is you need to understand what the definition of best practice is within the context of life. And to do this, you need to go and look at the code document. To cut it short, it's possible, but we consider best practice with a kind of comparison to the state of the art at member state level. So it must be a best practice at least at member state level. This means that it cannot be it cannot be something that is considered a best practice in the context of, for example, a region. It must be member state level. So that's the quick answer, Fabio. I don't know if you want to integrate, but yeah, that's what I would say.
Yes, I think, I mean, quickly, I think it's essential that you look at the code documents. And especially, I think I'll tell you some backgrounds. This year, compared to the past, indeed, we have simplified the definitions within life. For those that you've been applying before, you remember that we had piloting, demonstration, and innovation. We simply, and this was always a cause of confusion, we very much simplified the concept. We have two types of projects, let's say, targeting two types of different implementations. It's innovation on one side, and if it's not innovation, it's best practice. At the same time, please be aware that the concept of the project applying best practice, it's not applicable to all priorities. So you have, it was mentioned in the general session by Cesar, you have to carefully look at the priority areas included in the code documents, so the priorities of life, and you will see that a number of topics do include specifically the word innovative in the descriptions. These, of course, if we do request innovative solutions, we will not accept as practice. What is the consequence? Well, you will get a lower score in when the experts and the external experts, the assessors, will evaluate your proposal. So if you don't fit with the topic, you risk to be excluded from the ranking of the project. So this is an important specification. The rationale for this is quickly, because we have so many questions. We see that we receive a number of proposals on the same areas. So we receive a lot of proposals in trying to target the environmental problems at the end of pipe. We receive far less projects which look at the source of the issues. And we wanted to introduce the possibility for applicants to use best practice to target these specific areas. You know, the prevention, the circularity, the design for environment, the durability of products, the recyclability, those more ambitious projects which we do not receive so often. And so in that case, if there is a best practice in one member state, this is known to work, but it's not applied anywhere else. I mean, it's not replicated, or it is not been exploited. Why not trying with your project to bring this best practice or in other countries, in other sectors? So that's the philosophy behind opening up to best practice. Sorry for that. I should be the moderator, not trying to answer the questions. I'll try to keep myself quiet. Second most voted question, can you give examples for a 2 years and 10 years project relating to the starting and ending TRL? Oops, sounds like a difficult question to answer. Any volunteer, Aurelio, Cesar, to start off? Aurelio?
Yeah, I can, Fabio. Well, first of all, I think we don't have a required TRL. We also, because we don't have only technology related process, so we are not prescriptive in this sense in the circular economy and quality of life call. It is very difficult to say TRL 4 and then you end up TRL 7 or 8. This is very difficult, but what is important to highlight is that we are looking for, if you see in the definitions of our work criteria, we always talk about an operational scale that is sufficient to achieve credible and ambitious environmental impacts. So it's a kind of long way to say that this must be an implementation project. We cannot have a project that is only focusing on research, a small scale lab. So in this sense, it must be a level of scale and technology readiness that is already quite advanced, I would say, but again, it's just indicative above 5 as a start. To end, ideally, for those that we call close to market projects, with with an entry to the market. We talk in the application forms in the different sections that talk about this. We talk about already commercial and industrial scale, and this actually it's also linked to the next question. But okay, I will stop it here.
Thank you, Aurelio. Anyone else wants to complement, or we go to the somehow indeed the next questions that is related to this? Which I read loud. And in the back office, they're telling me that they're receiving a lot of questions, general questions, financial nature, etc. Please do check. We are not going to cover this in these sessions. We also don't have the financial team to support us, so we are covering only the circular economy. And please do check the recordings for this general session that they will be made available. And also, if you're still not happy or you don't find your answer, please write to the SINEA Life Inquiries mailbox. So we go to the next questions. What is a definition of demonstrative scale, and what is the border of the scale? Another interesting question, which I'm not sure we have an easy answer. In a way, it was answered already before by Aurelio. Cesar, you want to add anything else? Anyone else want to complement?
I mean, again, so finally, what Aurelio said, no, that in the end, we look for projects that by the end of the project, they should have a technology at a level which is just the previous one, for example, to already commercializing, so to upscaling to an industrial scale. So it should be pilot plants, but for example, but already not very small, but intermediate scale, so that the next step already would be commercialization. That would be like more or less a minimum. Yeah,
a minimum, but still we do still open to proposals which have a demonstrative scale maybe lower than you would expect, but they have really clear plans to replicate, to scale up, and they show us a convincing plan for that. So we are still supporting this type of project. Of course, you see from the award criteria, we are driven by implementation and output and impacts and benefits. And in this context, someone coming with a very small scale demonstration may find difficult to find his way to be financed, but it's not at all excluded, I would say. Anything else anyone wants to complement? Otherwise, we move to the next. 25 thumbs up. Yeah,
just one thing more, Fabio, about this. It also really depends on the sector that we are dealing with, evidently. If it's waste management, if it's wastewater treatment, and in the specific, if it's plastic, if it's something else in the specific sector, then you understand what is the scale that is close to the, you know, to the market or to a real industrial scale. So in this sense, it's, I hope the person that asked the question was not, you know, looking for a quantified answer, because it's not possible. We have a variety of projects. So
indeed. Thanks a lot, Aurelio. So next one is, are preparatory actions still eligible, such as permits, requests, etc.? Who didn't speak and wants to say something, or even I see Cesar putting off the microphone. Go, Cesar, if you wish. Don't worry.
Yeah, it was also disappeared in the previous session as well, in the general session. So yeah, so the answer is yes, they are still eligible, but well, we would not like to see proposals that have a lot of preparatory actions, no, because also, well, it's a sign of lack of maturity of the project. And as we have said before, we want projects that in the end deliver some already environmental impacts. So if most of the project is preparatory actions, most probably in the end it will not deliver so much impact, or at least it will be something that will be considered a little bit to lower your score in the application. So yes, it's eligible, but if the bulk of the project is preparatory, it's not good.
Thank you. Okay, so this is was easy. Okay, best practice projects are welcome as much as demonstration and pilot projects. Yes, what does it mean in terms of innovation requested from the projects? I'm not sure I fully understand the question. We do have definitions of innovation and definition of best practice that you would need to check. Anyone wants to take up this?
Yeah, Fabio, if I can.
Yeah, please.
Well, the first thing I would say is that, as Fabio just said, and we already repeated a couple of times, please check the definitions. You go to the call document and check the definition. Why I say this? Because already, for example, the concept of demonstration and pilot, although, okay, the logic is similar in the new compared to the old, let's say, life program, but those two demonstration and pilot projects where those two definitions, they come from the previous old life program. So in this sense, we need to change a little bit the paradigm. So this for this life and this call, we're talking about standard action projects, the traditional projects we had before, and we split them normally in implementation projects that are either best practice or innovative projects. And there is a definition of innovation. The innovation is, it's not in terms of, it's basically innovation compared to the state of the art. And again, the state of the art is considered to be at member state level. This is the short answer. But again, in the call document, you will find the kind of, the precise detailed definition, which again, it depends on the sector, on the technology, on the member state and the state of the art at member state level. Just that.
Thank you. Again, please do fit this in the context of the topic. Please double check if the topics do require innovation or not. Always, that's the starting point of it, and then you can make your own assessment on the rest. Are land purchase eligible for circular economy and quality of life project? I quickly answer that. Yes, they are eligible. They must be in the context of the project and have a role. Please don't come with buying land for buying land. It must be really linked to the objectives of the project. So I cut it short. I go to the next one. So
Fabio, sorry.
Yes, please.
So on this is delicate because otherwise we give the impression that we have a lot of projects where land purchase is possible. It is possible, formally it is possible, but basically it needs to comply with a series of conditions that again are, sorry if I'm boring, are in the code document. But just to give you a couple of examples, you can purchase land if the context of your project contributes to the integrity of the Natura 2000 network, that guarantees the long-term that the land basically will be used. So I stop it here because it's very, very specific. So for our projects, apart some that deal with the river basin management or things like this, it's very, very unlikely that you will be able to fit these conditions. So sorry, Fabio, to take it long, but again, I think it's important because it's a novelty also, this from the financial point of view, and I wouldn't like to pass the kind of wrong message.
Indeed, thanks, Aurelia. A very important message on the conditions, which are rather restrictive. Indeed. Okay, so Christian Behrens is asking about the live SAP environment. Yes, this call has a very practical approach. Indeed, can political decision making be addressed in this call? Can politics be a target group? Just to let some others speak. Michel, do you want to contribute to this question?
Yes, thank you, Fabio. Good morning. Indeed, we have, I mean, political impact and impact in general is important as part of the LIFE program. The politics can be a target group. We have good stories of projects impacting legislation or addressing hurdles in legislation at regional, national, or sometimes EU level. So it can be part of the project. Of course, it would need to have, it couldn't be the only setup of the project, but addressing the policy makers in politics can be done. If anyone would like to add on this.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah, maybe
yeah.
Fabio, I can
Yes,
add
please.
on Michel reply. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, just to make you aware on the fact that politics as a target group can also be addressed under the environmental governance strand under the circular economy and quality of life sub-program. So I'm thinking about, for instance, all the actions on behavioral change and awareness raising and information campaigns that can be that can target and address specifically to politics and political decision-making process as well.
Thank you, Francesca. Stay there because the next one I think it's for you too. So Francesca is helping us in the governance area and coordinating that. So SAP and Gov, since this category is new, well, it's not totally new, but I understand the point. What are the most crucial issues that a proposal must cover in order to be eligible?
Yes, indeed, Fabio. As you rightly said, this is not new, although it has been renamed in a different way. So basically, what happened is that before there was a specific separate call for what we used to call governance and information projects. Now these projects do still exist, but they are rather embedded under the new two sub-programs for life under the new multi-annual work programs. So you can find them both under circular economy and quality of life subprogram and under nature, depending, of course, on the type of issue that you target and that you address, depending on your project idea. And in terms of crucial issues, the topics for environmental governance have not been changed that much as compared to the past. They've been a little bit reshaped also in order to better reflect the updated policy priorities. So we keep finance, we keep supporting, for instance, public administration to implement environmental plans. We keep supporting projects on voluntary schemes like EMAS, PEF, eco-labels, and so on. There is a subtopic specific for environmental compliance, assurance, and access to justice, where also environmental crimes related to the circular economy and quality of life part are concerned. And there is a specific topic, as I was mentioning before, on behavioral change and awareness raising. And in terms as regards eligibility, they follow the same award criterion and eligibility criteria as the other sub projects. Just keep in mind that for these for the SAP and Gov, budget is quite limited, so the competition might be very, very high, and we will be able to choose only the very best one.
Thanks a lot, Francesca, for the complete and comprehensive answer. Cesar, you wanted to add something?
Nothing. I mean, so key aspects, no, are again the ambition of the project, no, in terms of well, also first consortium, no, a good consortium, and in general is important to involve the relevant stakeholders that are related to an environmental governance project, and then the ambition of your project, and yeah, and the results that you will achieve. I mean that's the key.
When we talk about ambition, we refer also to impact as well.
And sustainability as well, and the sustainability and possible scale up. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, I see questions directly to the person. Interesting, and maybe we can jump on that because we can assess do the best practice, which we already covered just after we change the speaker at least. So Tullio Netti for Mario, transport topics and circular air transport topics are often similar. Any suggestion to choose the right one? Mario?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the question. This is a little bit a dilemma we also had in the past. There are a few topics like air, for example, that since includes benefits on Climate 2. Generally, when you have a zero emission technology, it's zero emission for air pollutants and for also for CO2 or CO2 equivalent like methane. So I see a little bit this dilemma. Suggestion. What we always tell to applicant is life is an environmental or climate related or energy related program. In this case, we are talking about environment. So the environmental problem is one of the driving force when you decide to apply to our program. What is your solution about? If you are a city or you work with a city and the main problem you have in the city is air pollution, the technology that can be zero emission or low emission, although has a huge contribution to mitigate climate change, maybe can better fit or target the reduction of air pollutants, typically particulate matters or nitrogen oxide or volatile organic compounds, ozone, and other typical and stated by law air pollutants. If you are a subject, for example, is implementing a climate mitigation strategy, and you have a solution into transport, and your key indicator, your key action is really to contribute to a climate mitigation strategy, maybe it's better you apply to climate, because your narrative, your rationale is based on that. I think you have two opportunities if your projects is equally contributing to both of them. Then I repeat, my only suggestion is always look to the practical environmental problem you want to solve. Primarily can be air pollution if you participate to cycle, and then you also can quantify in the KPI the reduction of climate, and vice versa if you apply it to climate. But the environmental problem is the only logical suggestion I can give you. I don't know if some colleagues want to edit something on the top.
Looks like not. So you addressed the question quite in detail, indeed. Okay, so I see someone suddenly there is been questions been highly thumbs up and liked. That is this one. Can you give a definition of the income of the action? At the first reading, I don't understand the questions. Is anyone understanding what it's meant?
I can try. Maybe if income.
What is income?
Maybe it can be related to the generation of revenues from specific activities that you carry out within your action. If this is the interpretation, you know that if your project belongs to what we call close to market, so your technology is really stepping into the market, you can do it during the project. The project can also generate revenues, actual revenues that you have to report in the financial statement. And as far as I remember, because it's more on the financial side, it becomes part of the own contribution to cover the actions. Obviously, if the stream of revenues is very high and go to generate net profit, since it's not possible to generate net profit, this may have a consequence also on our grant, on our total amount. But frankly speaking, it's not happening so often, and we have very, very low and limited cases on this. So my interpretation of income maybe can be related to this. Otherwise, it's better. The question is better structured through live inquiry, so we can better address it.
Indeed, if this was not the answer or income wanted to say outcome of the action, then please do write to us and explain a bit better the question. So next one, we go back to the highly voted best practice questions. So this time projects related to best practice. Is it possible to replicate the best practice on a live project, or it is necessary to add an innovation to the best practice? Aurelio, do you want to answer? For me, it's
we're going to kind of
circles
with this. Yes, I have the impression maybe okay, because I would suppose that they already have a technology that they know what it is. But okay, like you don't add an innovation. But okay, having said this, the best practice, evidently, one part of our criteria is related to replication, sustainability. So the answer is yes, for sure, it's possible. It's also possible simply because we are saying that the definition is at the member state level. So in this sense, let's say a best practice in Italy, it is not a best practice in Bulgaria, or can be considered a best practice in Bulgaria, and then it can be replicated there. It cannot be replicated to another country where this is not considered best practice because there are more advanced techniques. So in this sense, yeah, no, you don't need to add an innovation to the best practice. I'm not sure if I was clear also to colleagues, but yeah, that would be my answer.
Yeah, in simple terms, yes. And we would hope that if you come with a best practice solution, your aim would be to apply it somewhere else, in another sector, in another country. So that would be your, I mean, the natural a development of a best practice project. Yeah. So this one, unless there is anyone wants to complement, I'll move on to the next highly voted KPI. Okay, this is a specific KPI mandatory for environmental governance project, activity in support of public administration, decision-making, and voluntary approaches. Here I have two persons that may cover this. Feel free to intervene both, or is it Francesca for the governance and our specialist on the KPI, Solon? So please go ahead, one of the two or both of them.
Yeah, I can take it first, and then if Solon wants to complement, if it's fine for you. Yeah, so the answer is yes. KPIs are mandatory for environmental governance projects as well. There are no specific KPIs for environmental governance. So Solon can explain you a little bit better later on the specifically for the Part C in grant. But of course, they are required, and they are part of the of the evaluation, and they are evaluated under the work criterion on impacts. So they have to be ambitious, of course credible. They need to be provided for both during and after the project, and we need to see methodology explained, and they also need to be compared to a clear baseline. And of course, from an environmental governance project, we of course, we expect to see some impact in terms of behavioral change, persons informed, and so on. But we also look at as much as possible to direct and or indirect environmental impacts per se, at least the indirect one. I'll give you an example. Since here the question mentioned specifically activities, the topic on activities in support of public administration's decision-making and voluntary approaches. So if your project targets, I don't know, the implementation of air quality plan, for instance, we expect to see how many people change their have been informed and change their old gas boiler, and through this we would also like to see how many PM reduction, how much PM reduction do you foresee? And yeah, so I don't know if Solon has anything else to add.
Yeah, thanks, Francesca. I think you covered well what is needed under the governance aspect. When it comes to the Part C and the KPIs, you will see that all projects are forced to report on a mandatory section, which is the horizontal section on the top, which is mostly yes, no, to be answered by yes or no. There are certain elements that have to do with governance projects. For example, specific questions about whether you deal with governance, but also strategic plans. So those can definitely be answered positively by the governance projects. Now, we had a lot of problems with governance projects when it came to numerical indicators as the ones that are mentioned in the question. And of course, there are many indicators that can appear for different projects, but we cannot in the Part C list everything. This is not one of the mandatory ones that are listed in this question. However, there is in the menu the option to enter other specific project KPIs. And if you select that, you can enter multiple possible KPIs that reflect better your project. For example, behavior change, raising awareness of people, etc. So you're free there to choose whatever KPI you wish, and this that are listed over there could of course be included for the specific project. So you just have to select the other project-specific KPIs, use your own units, and describe well within the comments what you're trying to report.
Yes, and for voluntary approaches, there could be also KPI indicators related to LCA, for instance, or socioeconomic analysis as well.
Again, just enter it in the other projects specific KPIs and describe well within the comments and find a unit that is appropriate to you.
Good. I think we're almost there, 5 minutes. So I'll call upon the speakers to try to be short, so we can answer as many as possible questions in these 5 minutes. I'll go straight to the next. Does the Circular Economy and Quality of Life program fund research activities, construction, analysis of pilot project, and the patent of innovation? A quick question from any one of you, a quick answer actually, or I'll do it.
Well, Fabio,
yeah?
if you...
Oh, yeah, Mario?
Okay, if you want, I can just start and then someone can complement. Well, construction and analysis or operation of a pilot project, yes, this is possible. Obviously, when we talk to pilot project, in my opinion, we're talking about the innovative part more than the best practice part. So I start from construction just to tell you that research activities cannot be the focus. I think to a certain extent in the what we call preparatory actions, as it was said before, a little bit of refining, it's possible since it's a pilot, but never the focus. So only a research project would be very, very much penalized in terms of impacts. For example, in terms of scale, you may be really, really very small and lab scale. As for the patent for innovation, I think this can be an eligible cost. I don't see problems mainly related to the fact that you want to bring forward this technology to next step after the pilot.
Okay, thanks a lot. We go a bit in a different direction now with the next one. We're talking about sustainable forestry strategy. So it's a project focused on sustainable forestry strategy with a new methodology and practices is an eligible sub-project. I think I can give the floor to Michel to start with. Michel, can you?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Fabio. There was in the previous financing period quite some overlap between the forest topics in the environment, the nature, and the climate part. So now it actually doesn't fit into the quality of life and circular economy. So there is a possibility indeed to finance forest-related projects in the nature and biodiversity part related to forests targeting degraded and carbon-rich ecosystem to prevent and reduce the impact of natural disasters, and in particular the improvement of the health and resilience of managed forests through, among others, closer to nature forestry practices. So at the first glance, this would indeed be an eligible SAP project, but under the nature and biodiversity strand.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a note, as it was in the past, but this is generally for all the projects, the topics or the priority areas that we have included in the application guides are not restrictive, in the sense that if you have a topic different, you can still come. Of course, when you will be evaluated in a work criteria one, there will be a scoring dedicated to if you fit with the priorities set in the code documents. In there, obviously, you will get a lower score. But if your proposal is exceptional, you have high impacts, you can still try to participate to life. Okay, I see another one for environment governance on the top. Are capacity building projects for public administration also intended to achieve results on water quality? Are specific KPI mandatory? it's a bit of a repetition. With the new spin on this water quality. I don't know who best can address this. I would not be able to give you an help, Francesca or Solon. Otherwise, we can follow up in the live inquiries.
I think it's very much the link to the previous question, I would say.
Yeah.
So again, on the KPIs, I give exactly the same answer as before, that all projects have to answer to the common horizontal section. And then there is no numerical KPI, which is mandatory for the governance section. If you find that you want to report in the part C, and of course, you, as Francesca said earlier, you have to also enter things in the part B to explain. But if you want to enter something also in the part C, as in the old Excel file, then just create your own KPIs using the other project-specific KPIs.
Okay. So the financial question speculated in our session is subcontracting. Is there a limit of 30%? Yes, but you know, you will be able to submit even if it's more, but of course you have to justify. Normally we do have still this limit in place. Next one. SAP and call. I think we are over time. Unless the moderators behind will kill me, I'll go with the last. I think best practice again. I think we can.
Fabio.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah. So when in the background, Julia was commenting if we could stay a few minutes more also, if we are available until 55.
Okay. Oh,
you are
perfect.
allowed.
Thank you. Sorry, I see now the message because I was busy looking at the questions and
that's correct. You focus on the business, but you can stay for other 5-10 minutes if needed. If you're all still relaxed,
fresh and able to answer.
Yeah, and not boiled. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So then we can go to the next one. I see best practice is still keep popping up. Best practice allowed, and if yes, under which condition do innovation projects get more points? What are the definitions? Okay, a suggestion for all those that are a bit lost on the best practice, please go and in the section 2 is where the type of actions and the definition are. There you find the definitions of innovative technologies, best practice, and so on. So you have a better understanding. We already said when best practices are allowed, you have to check the priorities. The priorities, again, are in the call documents. The call documents, in reality, is the Bible for your call. So please do care to read each line of it.
Fabio, may I quickly add that? I mean, if we take the example of water, because, okay, the question keeps coming up, so I don't know, perhaps we can give a practical example. If you look at all the water topics, for example, only one does not mention innovation, which is in the water quality and quantity, which is about floods and droughts, and it just says nature-based solutions. All the other ones mention innovation. So we expect that proposals coming in on all the other ones will be innovative. But on this one, we don't mention innovation. Hence, we allow also best practice to come into play with it. So it's just an example of
the microphone, Solon, I think it went off.
Yeah, it's just an example of how you have to look at the topics and make sure you fit to what the priority topic is asking when you're writing your proposal.
Fabio, just one quick thing to add, if it's possible.
Yeah.
Which we said it already, but maybe this is new and people might be confused. So to submit a live project, you need to fit with the definition of best practice or innovative type of project, standard action project, actually, to be precise. But then once you have done this, you get, as Jess Solon was saying, the innovation is, let's say, the additional points for innovation come when they fit with the priority topics. So if there's a priority topic that requires innovation and you fit it because you have a technology that is doing what the priority topic is asking and it's innovative because it's asked by the priority topics, then you will get additional point. But the innovation itself is not granted additional points. It's the degree of fit with the priority topics, basically. And I stop it there.
Okay, let's probably move to something else than best practice. I see couple footing on what may I address, and now it has disappeared, but okay, let's go with the next. For calculation of environmental benefits, there are go-to web site for carbon footprint calculation of CO2 emission baseline of different industry. This is very specific. I don't know, Solon, if you can answer to that, but
well, I think if you go to the Commission website, DG Klima, but also DG Environment, you will find indications of how to calculate CO2 reduction. There's also possibilities to look at into the European Environmental Agency and also look at how they make the calculations. Usually, though, there's also standard LCA practices. So there's various places where you can find information on how this can be done.
Okay,
I think I pause it there.
Yeah, but indeed we don't prescribe a very
Yes,
specific
yes.
thing. So that's also
No, we do not prescribe, but there are very many ways of doing it.
No.
But we don't have a standardized thing that we're asking in life. So if you're using a certain methodology, just describe the methodology, explain the methodology that is being used. And you may find different options, but we expect also as experts in the field that you know what you're doing, basically, as applicants.
Don't present as a sort of black box. You need to be transparent. Otherwise, the evaluators that will look at the proposal will not really understand the assumptions behind your calculations or your estimates. So be as much as simple and transparent as possible in your assessments. Before I jump to the next one, which I think it was already addressed in different sessions. Let me, because we are already at 52, we're almost 3 minutes. Let me just go to, because this is a new it's a new topic of priority areas, the European Bauhaus priority topic, and it's completely new from life. So I would like to at least address this one. I can answer quickly. We'll have the new European Bauhaus priority topic have a separate budget or concur with a more general one. In reality, yes, there is an indicative allocation. This is not fixed in stone, so things may change. Specifically for the new European Bauhaus priority topic, I think it's around 13 million for this project. So they will be assessed together. There will be this budget available, and there will be a ranking list that will select the best up to when we exhaust the available budget. Very specific. New Bauhaus, as I said, it's we are let's say trying to support these major initiatives by the commissions on the new Bauhaus. So we do want to see if there is scope for supporting projects that beyond doing their environmental targeting their environmental objectives and reducing impacts, they also do it in a sustainable with a accessibility and affordability design look which would fit the Bauhaus concept. So it's rather ambitious. We see it's a pilot, and we see how it goes. Having said that, thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity. We go back to the list and the likes. I read the next one. On what basis can one argue for the exploitation of results in non-market oriented projects? How should this part of the impact be oriented? Anyone volunteering on answering this? Cesar, I see the microphone. Solon, well, you do, yeah.
Go ahead, Cesar.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I mean, we are not asking for the impossible, no, for the project. So I mean, depending on the kind of project, some projects are by nature more market oriented, some others are not. So if your project falls within a category where you are not going to exploit results like selling something, I mean, then you should express the impact that you will have, for example, in terms of, I don't know, protection of the environment in some sense, or reduction of the negative environmental impacts of a certain process. Yeah, that would be my answer.
If I may complement to that, I think there's a lot of best practice coming out of nature issues when it comes to connectivity, for example, of rivers or Natura 2000 sites, how you handle them. There might be similar situations in other Natura 2000 sites. So that's where your networking comes in also with regards to how you're going to exploit the results and pass the knowledge to other places where they could implement these practices and also improve the environmental conditions there. So that's something that you will need to look within your project to identify possibly other areas where your practice could be exploited.
Maybe to add one thing, Fabio, just to, because the usual thing is what is exploitation, what is dissemination. So what Solo just mentioned, it's what he was referring to is to basically put in practice the results in another context, basically. So not just disseminate or not just transfer the information, but ideally really look for the conditions to really use these best practice for nature in another context where it can be applied. Otherwise, it would simply be a workshop or a conference, which doesn't really fit with the concept of exploitation.
Okay, thank you. I think we are at the end of it. I'm asking in the background if there is still time for one, or if this was the last one. In case it was the last one,
you can still take one. Fabio.
I can take one. Okay.
Yes, please. Pick one, the one that you want to answer out of situation is moving. But
I see something about
definitely
mitigation.
Not, yeah, don't take
okay.
that one.
Okay. Maybe some that I see now, SNAP and SIPS.
Yes,
it is new, and we definitely didn't cover it before. I guess the victim for this question will be Cesar. I read it quickly. Our project, the SNAP SIPS category, is in infancy stage, feasibility planning. Do we need to be a legal entity, charity CLBG, before TIA deadline of 22 of September?
Yeah, so yeah, I would say so. Yeah, you need, I mean, the applicant should be a legal entity. Yeah, so to be a beneficiary. So the answer is yes.
Okay. And with this one, I thank you for your patience. I hope you got at least most of you got the answers that you were expecting, and the things are more clear. I thank you very much for the colleagues that joined this session. Thanks a lot for your contribution. And please don't hesitate to write to us in the functional mailbox for any additional information or questions that you may have. Bye.
Thank you very much to the Circular Economy and Quality of Life team. There were a lot of questions. There are still questions there. It's impossible for us to answer them all, even though we are dedicating to you 4 hours in total for today and for tomorrow. No worries for all the questions that are on operating grants, on climate, and on clean energy transitions. You will have their sessions tomorrow, and they will be answered there. For what concerns circular economy and quality of life, this was the time. Just go back to the previous slide, please, in the back office, because talking about circular economy, we have a recently published fact sheet that puts together an overview of life funding to circular economy projects. There is the how do they work in the old programming period, how do they work in the new programming period. There is a sample of selected projects that were selected especially by the policy units because of their key project results. And there is also a background on EU policy and circular economy. So you can have a look there. You will find it in the publication session of our live website. The link is there. But yeah, that's all for today. I would just like to show you the agenda for tomorrow. There you will be with my colleague, Laura Giapichelli. She will introduce to you to the day and move to the climate session. Then Joël Noafalis will take care of operating grants with the rest of the team. And then, as we said several times, at 11, there is the session on clean energy transition. For those questions, you should post them on Slido on the hashtag Live21CET, but we know that you're already doing that, and that's working very well. So thanks for following all those instructions that we are sharing with you. That's all for the agenda. These are the two Slido code. For all the questions that you might still have about climate and operating grants, please use the one on the top, hashtag Live21. And for the CT, the hashtag Live21CT. That's all basically from my side. All those questions that we were not able to answer, if they're still very relevant to you, if you cannot find the answer in the documentation that we have published and in our frequently asked question, just write to us again on Senior Life Inquiries at eceuropa.eu, and we'll try to provide you with our best answer. Otherwise, I encourage you to keep in touch, and especially to connect tomorrow for the other 3 sessions remaining. A big thanks to everyone that was with us, that followed, the speakers, the moderators. Yes, it was a very nice morning. I wish you a nice afternoon. Bye, everyone.